Chapter 830. The Crow King's Rage. Suddenly, Heiyu, who sat in cultivation on the side, slowly opened his eyes. He looked towards Rui Jin and said, "Rui Jin, I feel the presence of the winged tiger god. It's already come." Rui Jin stared blankly at the red dragon soul that had just revived. Only after quite a while did he finally look away, shifting his gaze to Heiyu. "I know. Other than the winged tiger god, even the human chased after by the saint artifact has come. Heiyu, you're currently in the most crucial period. Cultivate without worry. After you break through to the 9th heavenly layer, we can go find the artifact spirit to heal your limb." With a careful glance, one would notice that Heiyu's right sleeve was empty. He had completely lost his right arm. Heiyu nodded. He looked at Rui Jin in deep gratitude and said, "Rui Jin, thank you." The only reason why he was able to absorb the energy of the world in the necropolis was because of Rui Jin. With him concealing Heiyu's presence, the dragon souls were unable to detect Heiyu as a foreign existence. Additionally, he used his own abilities to convert the energy in the necropolis before giving it to Heiyu to absorb. Rui Jin roared at the sky. Deep sorrow and loneliness appeared on his face. "In my entire life, I've only had 2 friends. Other than that girl from the Divine Phoenix clan, there's just you, Heiyu." Heiyu glanced at Rui Jin with mixed emotions. He seemed to be able to understand Rui Jin's current emotions, and a sliver of loneliness also appeared on his face. However, he quickly refocused his attention, slowly closing his eyes to continue his cultivation. He was preparing for an attempt to break through to the 9th heavenly layer. Rui Jin did not leave Heiyu's side. Currently, no matter what happened, he could not even take a step away. He needed to conceal Heiyu's presence to guarantee his safety. Although the dragon souls had no consciousness and were filled with hostility, they would not attack clansmen. In the rather dark cave, both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress sat on the ground with their legs crossed. Jian Chen had already sent the white tiger back into the artifact space, allowing it continually increase its strength through the use of heavenly resources. Outside the cave, the roars of the dragon souls pierced the sky. It caused the mountain range to shake, preventing the 2 of them from getting any peace during this entire period. This was all because the dragon souls had increased to over 30 outside, with the weakest at Class 7. The number of Class 8 dragon souls had also increased to 3 from the initial one. 30-odd dragon souls directly patrolled about in a radius of several dozen kilometers, without any leaving at all since the beginning. In the cave, Jian Chen slowly closed his eyes. He stood up and paced about, while his eyebrows furrowed with a sliver of worry. He then looked at the heavenly enchantress and said, "Senior, it won't work if this continues. Are those dragon souls going to keep moving about outside? Is there any way to make them leave?" The heavenly enchantress slowly opened her eyes and after a slight deliberation, she said, "There is one way." Jian Chen's eyes brightened. He immediately asked, "What is it?" "The method is to have someone outside attract the attention of the dragon souls and then lead them away," the heavenly enchantress said indifferently. With that, a sliver of despair appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. The Fantasy Star Ocean was a danger zone only second to the Death's Nest on the Tianyuan continent. There were extremely few people who dared to enter this place. It was even ordinary for no one to enter even after several decades. It was virtually impossible to get someone to attract the attention of the dragon souls outside. "Looks like we can only keep waiting." Jian Chen sighed softly. He sat down once again. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed. He and the heavenly enchantress had basically passed that period of time in silence, without saying much at all. Meanwhile, the patrolling dragon souls did not leave, and instead increased in number, reaching over 40 from the initial 30-odd. Those other dragon souls were all drawn over by the initial dragon souls. They moved around mindlessly, without purposefully searching for anything. They did not seem to know about the presence of the 2 of them at all. 7 days later, Jian Chen could no longer sit around once again. He stood up and thought, "Why don't I recover some chaotic force instead of wasting time?" With that, a golden light immediately shot from the center of Jian Chen's eyebrows. It turned into a palm-sized golden tower. What do you want to do? As soon as Jianchen did something, it attracted the heavenly enchantress's attention. She stared fixedly at Jianchen with her beautiful eyes, glancing at the golden tower without the slightest clue. She carried an expression of curiosity. Currently, there were dragon souls moving about outside. They completely relied on the boulders blocking the cave entrance to isolate their presence and prevent the dragon souls from noticing them. As a result, the heavenly enchantress was worried that Jianchen would create too large of a commotion and alarm the dragon souls outside. "Senior, I want to cultivate a little and recover some strength," Jianchen replied. "No. With the residue energy, it will definitely attract the attention of the dragon souls outside," the heavenly enchantress said sternly. Her tone allowed no exceptions. Jianchen looked at the golden tower and swore solemnly. "Don't worry. I'll cultivate in another space, so there won't be any residue energy at all. Naturally, it would be impossible to alarm the dragon souls outside." The heavenly enchantress looked at the golden tower. It was the second time she had seen it, and she was extremely curious about its origins. She asked, "What is this?" Jianchen hid nothing. Senior may not have seen it, but Senior should have heard of its name before. "This tower is the saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union." "What?" "The artifact of the Union." The heavenly enchantress was shocked. She stared at the tower in disbelief and said, "Impossible. How did the saint artifact end up in your hands?" Jianchen chuckled, but did not give any further explanations. He said, "Senior, there's an independent space within the artifact. It's extremely safe in there. Why don't you come in with me? That way, even if our hiding location is discovered by the dragon souls, we won't be harmed at all." She calmed down very quickly. After some deliberation, she asked, "I've heard of the saint artifact from the Radiant Saint Master Union. Apparently, it's an extremely powerful divine artifact. I never thought it would end up in your hands. I wonder if we can use the artifact to leave this place." Jianchen shook his head. "No, we can't. I just discussed this with the artifact spirit. The artifact is not originally from the Fantasy Star Ocean, so its presence will still be detected by the dragon souls. Once the artifact leaves this place, it will be targeted by the dragon souls outside and attacked. The Class 7 ones may not be able to harm the artifact spirit, but there are Saint Emperor dragon souls in the necropolis. Once we draw those dragon souls over, it'll probably be dangerous even if we hide in the artifact." The heavenly enchantress furrowed her eyebrows slightly. "Looks like we can only wait until the dragon souls leave. All right, I'll enter the artifact space with you." "Artifact spirit, take us in," Jianchen ordered. 2 pillars of light immediately shot from the saint artifact, encasing the two of them before disappearing. In the blink of an eye, the dark cave became empty, with only a faintly glowing, golden artifact hanging in the air. Shortly afterward, the artifact slowly began to dull, becoming extremely ordinary-looking. Next, it slowly flew over to a dark corner, hiding itself behind a large rock. The current artifact space was very different from before. Before, when Jianchen and the Radiant Saint Masters entered it to compete, the huge space only had a few Class 6 magical beasts, with no magical beast stronger than that. Now, the huge space had various magical beasts everywhere. They ranged from Class 1 to 5, and there were even some Class 6 magical beasts moving about. On a grassy plain, there were 2 Class 5 magical beasts currently locked in a life-or-death battle. The energy ripples from the great fight turned the surroundings into a mess, kicking rocks and sand into the air. Meanwhile, the beasts roared angrily. At this very moment, 2 pillars of white light suddenly appeared in the sky. The tight-clothed Jianchen and the purple-dressed heavenly enchantress appeared. The heavenly enchantress held her zither in her arms. As soon as they arrived, she impatiently looked around with deep curiosity flooding her eyes. The sudden appearance of the two attracted the attention of the 2 fighting magical beasts. They could not help but stop and look at the sky. They looked vigilantly at the 2 people above with their vicious gazes. Just from their bestial instinct, they could feel a great threat from the 2 of them. "Ka!" At this very moment, an earth-shaking sound appeared in the distance. Immediately afterward, a powerful presence with rocketing killing intent appeared too. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes, looking towards the direction of the sound. He could not help but curl his lips into a cold smile. It's that Class 7 Crow King. I didn't think it would still remember me. Looks like the Class 6 Crow I killed last time is a close kin of it. Saint Ruler abilities could be used at will in the artifact space. The Class 7 Crow King used spatial force, fusing with the surrounding space to shoot over from the distance at Jian Chen. In just a few seconds, a black appeared on the endless horizon, quickly increasing in size. It arrived before Jian Chen very quickly. It was a huge, jet black crow that was several dozen meters in length. It radiated with a vast presence, causing the Class 5 magical beasts below, who had stopped their fight, to collapse on the ground while trembling. Their eyes were filled with dread. The crow stared fixedly at Jian Chen with its scarlet eyes. Hatred soared in its eyes, and it soon producing a horrible cry toward the sky. It turned into a black blur, shooting at Jian Chen while its pair of sharp claws shone with a cold light, directly clawing at Jian Chen's heart. Chapter 831. The Artifact's Monster Cores, You Dare. At this very moment, an angry yell sounded out of nowhere. It instantly froze the surrounding space, as if it had turned into extremely tough ice, trapping the Crow King tightly and cutting off all its mobility. The Heavenly Enchantress's eyes immediately narrowed when she saw the Class 7 Crow King being trapped. She could already tell that the Crow King was at the 7th heavenly layer. It could be imagined just how powerful the person who struck out in secret was, as he had actually trapped such a powerful magical beast midair. It was at least a supreme Saint King. The artifact spirit slowly appeared beside Jian Chen. He did not even glance at the Crow King, directly bowing at Jian Chen. I greet Master. She immediately became astonished when she heard the spirit say Master. She stared at Jian Chen and the artifact spirit in the shape of a middle-aged. She was extremely shocked. Meanwhile, the trapped Crow King had also heard how the artifact spirit had referred to Jian Chen. Its reactions were even greater than the Heavenly Enchantress. The shock it experienced had reached the absolute limit. It was closely followed by deep dread and disbelief. It was born and raised in the artifact space, so it knew the artifact spirit's identity and strength extremely well. Release that crow, Jian Chen said. Yes, masters? The artifact spirit replied courteously, before immediately returning the frozen space to how it was before. The Crow King also regained control over its body as a result. However, the Crow King no longer dared to attack Jian Chen. It immediately transformed into a short, black-robed old man, kneeling on the ground. It said extremely courteously, "Mou greets Sir Artifact Spirit." The Artifact Spirit glared at the Crow King and said coldly, "How dare you actually disrespect Master?" The Crow King trembled all over, and its eyes were filled with deep fear. It said with a shaking voice, "Please do not be angry, Sir Artifact Spirit, please do not be angry." Before, Mou did not know he was the master of Sir Artifact Spirit. "If I have done any offense, please forgive me." Seeing this, the Heavenly Enchantress became more and more astonished. A powerful Class 7 magical beast was actually begging the Artifact Spirit for forgiveness on its knees. This was extremely rare. After all, Class 7 magical beasts were equivalent to Saint Rulers and were naturally arrogant, let alone the fact that the Crow King had even reached the 7th heavenly layer. Even before Saint Kings, they would just act more courteously at most. They would never be so shaken. The Heavenly Enchantress could not help but guess at the Artifact Spirit's strength once again after she witnessed the events before her. However, what made her even more astonished was that such a powerful Artifact Spirit actually took a Saint Ruler as its master. This was an extremely great piece of news. "How are you related to the Class 6 Crow that I killed initially?" Jian Chen inquired. With that, the short old man hesitated slightly. Originally, it did not want to answer Jian Chen's question, but as soon as it remembered Jian Chen's relationship with the Artifact Spirit, it could only reply obediently. "That was one of the 8 disciples I took. as well as the most outstanding disciple of the 8. He had an extremely great chance of breaking through to Class 7. Jian Qin became relieved and said, "You can go. In the future, if you still want to take vengeance on me, I will be here." The short old man hesitated slightly. It did not say anything, and instead looked toward the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit said indifferently, "Since Master does not intend to pursue your disrespect from before, I will let you off the hook for now. You can go." The old man bowed deeply at the artifact spirit before turning and leaving. Afterward, Jian Qin, the heavenly enchantress, and the artifact spirit arrived at the palace in the center of the space. She did not ask too many questions about this location, quietly leaving after choosing a hall. She planned to go into seclusion for a while. After dismissing the artifact spirit, Jian Qin also chose a quiet hall to go into seclusion. He wanted to recover his chaotic force. In an ice-cold and empty hall, Jian Qin sat cross-legged in the center, currently sorting the monster cores in his space ring. He had already planned to refine all these monster cores into chaotic force. Around him, the cores of various classes were already stacked up like mountains, radiating with great energy ripples. After sorting through all the monster cores, Jian Qin finally stopped. He used his thoughts to communicate with the sword spirits who were absorbing the multicolored stone, to get them to assist him in the refining. Ziying and Qing Suo immediately appeared above Jian Qin's head. With a flick of their hands, a small pile of monster cores immediately flew up between them, before being refined into strands of chaotic force. The mountainous piles around him were constantly decreased, refined into chaotic force by the sword spirits and entering Jian Qin's dantian. The chaotic Niden in Jian Qin's dantian slowly began to grow at a visible rate. After 2 days, all the mountainous monster cores around him were consumed, without a single left. Meanwhile, Jian Qin's chaotic Niden had grown from the soybean size to the size of a thumb. The chaotic force he gained was extremely limited, less than 1/100th of the energy he absorbed below Mercenary City. This was because the vast majority of the cores were Class 3, 4, and 5. He had already used up some of the Class 6 monster cores before, so there were extremely few left. Jian Qin slowly opened his eyes. His eyebrows furrowed from worry. Currently, he had consumed all the monster cores on him. Other than the ruler armament and the dragon-slaying sword, he had nothing else he could refine into chaotic force. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Jian Qin's head. He murmured quietly, "There seems to be quite a few Class 7 magical beasts in the artifact space. I wonder if the magical beasts who passed from old age had left behind any cores. If they have," slowly, Jian Qin's eyes glowed brighter and brighter before he abruptly stood up from the ground, rushing out of seclusion. Artifact Spirit. Outside the hall, Jian Qin directly summoned the artifact spirit. "Master, how may I be of service?" The artifact spirit appeared before Jian Qin soundlessly. "Artifact spirit, don't many magical beasts exist in the artifact space? When those magical beasts die, do they leave behind monster cores?" Jian Qin asked hurriedly. His heart was filled with a powerful anticipation. There are quite a few monster cores. The cores can only be absorbed by humans, so they're completely useless to magical beasts. However, after the deaths of their ancestors, many clans of magical beasts would consecrate them. If Master needs them, this one can go collect them immediately, the artifact spirit said. Jian Qin was ecstatic. His heart could not help but begin thumping heavily. He said urgently, "Artifact spirit, I need large amounts of cores. Collect it for me immediately." "Yes, masters." Afterward, all the clans of magical beasts in the entire artifact space fell into a commotion. The monster cores consecrated in their ancestral halls that were left behind by their ancestors all flew away. Their halls, which used to be filled with various high-class monster cores, had become empty. This occurred to all the magical beast clans in the artifact space of ranging sizes. All the monster cores kept by those magical beasts flew away under the attention of countless experts, whether high-class or low-class. There were even several powerful Class 7 magical beasts who went to prevent the cores from leaving, but as soon as they moved, they were immediately met with the suppression of the artifact space. In the end, they could only watch on helplessly as the monster cores left behind by their ancestors disappeared into the distance. It's Sir Artifact Spirit. Sir Artifact Spirit has taken away all the monster cores left behind by the ancestors. The powerful Class 7 magical beasts understood very quickly. Even though there were many beasts who were absolutely infuriated, they did not dare to grumble too much. This was because in this space, the artifact spirit was like a god. He was absolute. Other than this, several monster cores buried deep within the ground broke out. They all flew towards the central palace. The cores had been accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years. The amount had already reached an extremely terrifying level, other than the tiny portion that was taken by the competitors from the Radiant Saint Master Union. The remaining were all left behind in the space. Inside the hall, Jian Chen stared blankly at the floor before him. He only saw countless monster cores flying in from outside in a steady, unending stream. They all piled on the ground neatly, and in just a few seconds, the monster cores had already formed a small mountain, blocking up the corridors. Master, I am currently collecting all the monster cores in this space. There's no more room here, so I've placed the remaining cores in another hall. If Master needs them, Master can go take them whenever. A while later, Jian Chen heard the artifact spirit's voice. Looking at the surroundings, he saw mountainous piles of monster cores. Jian Chen gulped with some effort. If the cores here were an elephant, the monster cores in his space ring would basically be an ant. It was incomparable. Artifact spirit, how many high-class monster cores are there here in total? Jian Chen asked with some difficulty. Master, in the past hundreds of thousand years, there has been over 2,000 Class 8 magical beasts and 50,000 Class 7 magical beasts that have appeared in the artifact space in total. Other than the Class 8 magical beasts who left a few days ago, the remaining monster cores have all been preserved. As a result, there are over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores, and an uncountable number below Class 7, the artifact spirit said. Jian Chen was completely stunned. Currently, any thought processes in his mind had stopped. Only what the artifact spirit had said echoed through his head. Over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores. Over 2,000 Class 8 monster cores, over 50,000 Class 7 monster cores, Jian Chen muttered mindlessly. His voice trembled. Currently, euphoria had drowned Jian Chen's entire spirit. He was drunk in endless joy, unable to return to his senses even after a great period of time. Chapter 832. Secluded cultivation. Only after an extremely long time did Jian Chen finally return to his senses. He looked around at the surrounding monster cores. He felt like this pleasant surprise had just come too suddenly. Before, he was still worrying over the lack of monster cores, yet currently, the artifact spirit had directly helped him find vast numbers of them. The number of Class 7 and 8 monster cores among them had reached an unimaginable level, even for him. It made Jian Chen feel like he was currently living in a dream and that everything happening before him was not real. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath, slowly calming himself down. He looked around at the neatly stacked monster cores which had plugged all the corridors. Without any hesitation, he began to put them into a space ring. There were monster cores from all classes. After placing several thousand into a space ring, Jian Chen finally calmed down completely. Shortly afterward, he seemed to think of something, immediately stopping what he was doing. He thought, if I shove all the monster cores into one space ring, wouldn't that mean I would lose a lot of monster cores if I happen to lose that ring? Right now, I've already become the master of the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit is hidden in my mind. It's impossible to lose it. It seems like leaving these monster cores in the artifact space is the safest. Thinking this through, Jian Chen stopped shoving monster cores into his space ring. He turned around to face the artifact spirit. Find me a large room for storage and place all these monster cores into it. Also, grab 100 Class 7 monster cores for me. Yes, masters. The artifact spirit replied immediately. With a wave of his hand, The mountainous piles of monster cores in the surroundings all disappeared. Only exactly 100 fist-sized Class 7 monster cores remained floating in the air. Jianchen looked at the 100 Class 7 monster cores before frowning slightly. He walked up and grabbed a core, but it had completely gone dull. The thick layer of dust on it had already formed a thin rock shell, tightly encasing the monster core. From a single glance, the fist-sized monster core seemed just like a round rock. Jianchen squeezed his hand gently, crushing the stone layer into pieces. It revealed the monster core hidden inside. The core remained dull, with only tiny ripples of energy hidden extremely deep within. Seeing this, Jianchen's eyebrows immediately furrowed tightly. Master, these monster cores have already existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Quite a lot of the energy inside has leaked out over time, and the remaining energy had basically solidified. The artifact spirit explained from one side. Jianchen stared attentively at the Class 7 monster core in his hand. You're right. A lot of the energy in the monster core has leaked out. Only about 60% remains. Monster cores were different from ruler armaments. On the Tianyuan continent, every ruler armament was a powerful weapon valued by people and would be stored carefully. People would treat them like their own children. Additionally, ruler armaments could absorb the energy of the world to repair themselves, so ruler armaments could be preserved for a very long time. However, monster cores could not. They were only helpful to humans and were of no use to magical beasts, as magical beasts were unable to absorb the energy in them like humans. As a result, after powerful magical beasts pass away, the monster cores left behind could only be consecrated as holy relics, as a way to express respect to their ancestors. Once monster cores were stored for a long time, the energy within them would slowly leak out and then solidify. Although some of the energy has leaked out, these monster cores are still extremely helpful to me. Artifact Spirit, I will be going into seclusion immediately. I will naturally call you when I need you. Also, in the period I go into seclusion, pay attention to the activity outside. If anything happens, call me right away. Jianchen said. Yes, master. In the quiet hall, Jianchen sat cross-legged on the cold floor. The sword spirits had already appeared, currently cross-legged above Jianchen's head, refining the first Class 7 monster core with difficulty. The speed of refinement was extremely slow, even several times more difficult than refining the ruler armaments at the beginning. The remaining energy in the hundreds of thousand-years-old monster cores had already solidified completely. During the refining process, Jianchen felt like the energy in the monster cores had turned into an extremely tough ice cube. Currently, he had the ice cube in his mouth, sucking any moisture from it with difficulty. It was extremely exhausting. The first monster core was finally refined after an entire day. It turned into a tiny strand of chaotic force, entering Jianchen's body. The strand of chaotic force was clearly less than what he had obtained from refining the ruler armaments before. Even though it was like that, Jianchen felt extremely satisfied. The artifact spirit had produced a total of several tens of thousand Class 7 monster cores, and even quite a few Class 8 monster cores. If he could refine all of them, his chaotic body would definitely rise up to another level. At the very least, it was more than enough to reach the second layer. Jianchen did not stop. Finishing with the first monster core, he immediately pulled out a second Class 7 monster core, continuing his refining. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months passed. Jianchen spent the entire time in secluded cultivation, refining the monster cores into chaotic force. The 100 cores he had originally brought in were all consumed, which allowed the chaotic Niden in his dantian to expand by quite a lot. If we continue with a speed like this, reaching the second layer of the chaotic body is just around the corner. Seeing how his chaotic Niden had grown much bigger, Jianchen experienced unconcealable joy. Soon afterward, he left his room of seclusion, directly summoning the artifact spirit outside. The artifact spirit appeared before Jianchen without any sound. Jianchen asked immediately, "Has anything happened outside while I was in seclusion?" "Master, the situation outside remains the same as before. There have been no changes," the artifact spirit said. "Perfect. Then, I can keep up the secluded cultivation for some time more. Artifact Spirit, please fetch another 500 Class 7 monster cores for me. Please try to pick those from magical beasts that have passed away recently, Jian Chen said. Yes, masters. The Artifact Spirit replied courteously. Afterward, with a thought, 500 Class 7 monster cores appeared out of nowhere before Jian Chen. Every monster core radiated with a powerful energy ripple, and the energy inside was extremely active. It was not solidified. Clearly, their masters did not pass away too long ago. Jian Chen took the 500 Class 7 monster cores, turning around to return to his secluded cultivation. Master, the seal for the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force will open in another half a year. As Jian Chen turned around, the Artifact Spirit's voice appeared in Jian Chen's head. With that, Jian Chen froze slightly. His father and mother immediately flashed through his head, and he said, "When it happens, you must notify me." As soon as he finished speaking, Jian Chen disappeared into the hall. The heavy door also closed slowly. In the empty room, Jian Chen sat on the ground with his legs crossed. He muttered softly, "There's still over half a year before I can obtain the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force to reach Class 7. I'll be able to revive my parents when that happens. But before that, I need to increase my strength as fast as possible. I can only return to the continent after I possess a strength that can rival the 10 clans. Otherwise, not only will I fail to revive mother and father, even Xiao Bai would be pulled into trouble. It'll be hard to keep my own life intact too." Jian Chen quickly dismissed his emotions. He began to continue his refinement of the monster cores. Now that lack of monster cores was resolved, he needed to power up as fast as possible. In the distant Tianyuan continent, the waves that brewed for the search of the winged tiger god did not bear any signs of weakening. The matter had already caused a great commotion on the continent. Everyone knew. Not only did the 10 protector clans move out for this, even ancient clans and hermit clans that had spent many years hidden had reappeared, joining the search for the winged tiger god. During that time, the 10 protector clans did not just sit around. They had worked together several times in the past to use secret techniques to scan the entire continent. They attempted to find the winged tiger god and Jian Chen's presence, but the outcome would be disappointing every time with no exception. Although the Pure Heart Pavilion had gained Changyanghu, causing some slight shifts in their relationship with the Lore City Changyang clan, they did not give up on the search. The matter regarding the winged tiger god was extremely important. It touched on the fate and future of the entire continent. As one of the 10 protector clans, the Pure Heart Pavilion definitely would not ignore the safety of the continent over just Changyanghu. However, the protector Changyang clan's relationship with the other 8 clans, excluding the Pure Heart Pavilion, became much colder. The 8 clans all harbored ill intentions. None of them wanted the Changyang clan to obtain the winged tiger god successfully, all of them having the intention of eliminating the clan. The Changyang clan naturally discovered this long ago. However, they did not do anything in response. They did not care at all. Instead, they were even more frantic than the 9 other clans in their search for Jian Chen, because not only was Jian Chen an unprecedented genius on the entire continent, the winged tiger god had followed him, a descendant of the Changyang clan. As long as they found Jian Chen first, it would mean that they directly gained control over the winged tiger god. Meanwhile, Changyang Zhu Yunxiao, one of the 7 great elders, always remained in the Changyang clan of Lore City with his wife, Changyang Zuyeyun. They silently guarded the clan their son had founded all those years ago in this urgent period, as well as waited for their son's return. The situation of the Flame Mercenaries was also much better. The group essentially strengthened every day. The news of the tungsten alloy mine they possessed was leaked as the ancient clans had all appeared, but even the ancient clans did not dare to desire the tungsten alloy mine with the shadow of the protector Changyang clan behind them and the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, supporting the Flame Mercenaries. Only the Tianmu clan, after discussions with Yu Yu and Bai Lian, obtained some tungsten alloy in exchange for some equally valuable items. The Flame Mercenaries never stopped their mining and refining of the tungsten alloy. They already had a large quantity of the refined alloy stored up. Their plan to build city walls had been dismissed, and they were now undergoing a plan to build a city. They wanted to build a city just for the flame mercenaries completely out of tungsten alloy. Meanwhile, Ming Dong remained in secluded cultivation in a desolate area. He had never come out since he had entered. Huang Wan had also returned to the Huang family to cultivate after Jian Chen left. Tai Ta, Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Dugafeng, and the others also went into seclusion. They used the monster cores left behind by Jian Chen right before he had left to quickly power up. In the Tianqin clan of Walnut City, Qin Shao originally planned to go searching for Jian Chen. However, as the 10 protector clans publicized Jian Chen's images throughout the entire continent, his movements were immediately suppressed by the great elders of the clan, and he was forcefully placed under house arrest. Meanwhile, the young lady, Qin, continued just like before. Every day, if she was not playing the zither, she would be drawing. Her music no longer carried the serenity of before. Instead, there was now with a vague longing and gloom. Other than the beautiful scenery in her drawings, there would be extra drawings of a young man. The young man seemed staunch. He was handsome and smart, and the drawing was lifelike, as if he was real. Chapter 833. The Tianyuan Continent's Situation. Master Jian Chen, I never thought your real name would be Changyang Xiangtian. Everyone on the Tianyuan continent is looking for you right now. I wonder if you're still doing well, murmured Qin, the young lady of the Tianqin clan. Jian Chen, you must hide well. You can't be discovered by them. You promised to go wandering about the continent with me. I, Qin Shao, believe you are a man of your word. You cannot make me disappointed. Under house arrest, Qin Shao sat by himself in a room, drinking in his depression. He spoke with an extremely faint voice. In a bustling first-class city, several dozen burly men gathered in a luxurious estate, cultivating. They all radiated with a fierce aura that reeked of blood. It was an aura that was only present on people who killed very often. Captain, the whole city's filled with public notices searching for you. It's a pity we're too weak, so we're of no help at all. But we will definitely work hard on our cultivation. When we're strong enough, we'll stand side by side with the captain and slaughter foes for the captain. In one of the room, middle-aged man said this with a deep voice. His eyes flickered with a determined light. At the same time, a similar voice appeared in various places on the luxurious estate. They were the earliest group of members from the Flame Mercenaries. Their loyalty to Jian Chen had been tested through near-death experiences. They had been promoted to core members by Jian Chen long ago, where he poured resources to raise them without holding back at all. Currently, the several dozen people had already become a group with extraordinary strength. Most of them had already become Earth Saint Masters, with only a few that were still Great Saint Masters. In the Holy Empire, the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union stood on the 5th floor of the headquarters castle, staring outside at the scenery. His eyebrows were furrowed in worry. He had spent the entire past 3 months filled with worry. The anxiety in him had already affected his appearance, making him seem much older. The news of losing the Union artifact was contained, only limited to a few people. It did not spread. However, the president knew that paper was unable to contain fire. The fact that the Saint artifact was lost could not be hidden for over a year, even though it was temporarily contained. This was because in a few months, the top 10 competitors would be preparing to enter the artifact to absorb the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. At that time, the loss of the artifact would be announced as of a result. I wonder just where Jian Chen is. My union cannot go on without the artifact. The president sighed softly, while the worry on his face deepened. At this very moment, the door of the room was opened. The white-robed Grand Elder walked in, his face also filled with worry. President, we definitely can announce that the artifact is lost. When the competitors plan to enter it in a few months' time, we will need to find an excuse to delay the time to absorb the origin energy if we can't recover the artifact. The president pondered silently for a very long time before nodding. We can only do that. This is perhaps the best action we can take right now. In a Class 2 city within the Holy Empire, a white-robed female sat all by herself in the pavilion of a garden on a huge, luxurious property. She sat there blankly, staring at the fishes that swam back and forth. The woman seemed to be around 20 years of age. She possessed an alluring appearance and radiated with a noble and sacred aura. A middle-aged man in tight clothing hurried over from a distance behind the woman. He knelt on one leg outside the pavilion and said, "I greet the first young lady. What's happened with the matter I told you to go investigate about? Has the Union's artifact been recovered?" Carolee Wei said without even looking back, her voice extremely cold. Replying to young Miss, "The Union has not recovered the artifact," the man said. Carolee Wei went silent for a while before replying, "I understand now. You are dismissed. This one bids farewell." The middle-aged man backed off courteously. After the man left, Carolee Wei sighed gently. She slowly walked over to a stone bench in the pavilion and sat down. Her eyebrows furrowed with a sliver of worry, and she murmured, "I just never thought that the artifact of the Union would be taken away by Yang Yutian. Without the artifact, how will I reach Class 7? In the sky of the Northern Sea, a white-robed, middle-aged man currently rode a cloud completely condensed from radiant Saint Force. This man was traveling toward the depths of the ocean with an exhausted expression. He was Yun Tian. 3 months ago, Yun Tian left the Union. With a few setbacks along the way, he finally left the continent, arriving at the sea after 3 months of traveling. He was looking for the experts who searched for the winged tiger god. Yang Yutian, I don't care if you're a Radiant Saint Master or a fighter. I, Yun Tian, won't let you have it easy no matter what. I wonder what the experts from the Beast God continent would do after they learn that the winged tiger god is with you. I reckon they'd seize your family to threaten you. Ha ha ha, Yang Yutian, I don't care if you're a saint ruler or a member of the 10 protector clans. Before the experts of the Beast God continent, you're nothing. If they want to crush you, it's no more difficult than crushing an ant." Yun Tian laughed viciously. Currently, his eyes were bloodshot while his face was haggard. He was already losing part of sanity, and soon after, the light in his eyes disappeared. He directly fell from the sky toward the vast ocean. Yun Tian had already hurried over the ocean without resting for several days. As a Radiant Saint Master, his body was fragile and there were no islands in the ocean which he could rest on. As a result, after several stays of traveling without rest, combined with the exhaustion of 3 months of travel earlier, he could not last any longer. He directly fell unconscious, falling toward the ocean. Meanwhile, he continued to murmur words about the Beast God continent, the winged tiger god, and Jian Chen from time to time. There's actually a human here, and he seems to be a Radiant Saint Master. Interesting, what? The Beast God continent, the winged tiger god. Semi-conscious, Yun Tian seemed to hear an astounded voice. Shortly afterward, he seemed to feel his body being picked out of the ocean by a great hand. After an unknown period of time, Yun Tian discovered that he was lying in a luxurious palace as he slowly woke up. "Human, you've finally awoken." Suddenly, a heavy voice boomed. Yun Tian stood up from the ground with some difficulty, looking around. He discovered that several people of varying ages stood on both sides, while at the very end of the hall boldly sat a dignified middle-aged man.
"Who are you?
Where's this place?" Yun Tian stared at all the people around him vigilantly, crying out. The middle-aged man who sat at the very end sneered. "I am one of the 3 emperors of the Beast God continent, Tiger Emperor Lankiros." "What? An emperor of the Beast God continent?" With that, Yun Tian was shocked. He stared at the people in the hall with dread. "Are you all experts of the Beast God continent?" An odd smile formed on Lankiro's face. "Human, you have 2 choices right now. The first would be telling me everything you know regarding the winged tiger god, and using that to exchange for your life. The second would be dying." The first, I choose the first. I indeed know quite a lot about the winged tiger god. I'll tell you all about it, Yun Tian said with no hesitation. Did he not travel such a long distance just to tell these experts this information? Very soon, Yun Tian told everything he knew to the Beast God Continent experts. He placed emphasis on Jianchen and the Changyang clan when he mentioned them, and also explained the fact that the winged tiger god was with Jianchen in detail. Jianchen. The Changyang clan, Lankiros murmured quietly. Shortly afterward, a cold smile formed on his face. He stood up from his throne and said, "Everyone, it just happens to be that the 3 months have passed. Send orders down for everyone to go to the Tianyuan continent with me immediately." The experts immediately left the island which they had stayed on for 3 months, leaving behind Yun Tian. With their departure, the grand palace also collapsed with a loud sound, turning into pieces of tough rock. Not long afterward, another intense battle erupted in the northern seas. It was so intense that even the sky darkened as of a result, causing the sun and moon to dull. The magical beasts from the Beast God continent wanted to enter the Tianyuan continent in search of the winged tiger god, but they were met with the intense resistance of the 10 protector clans and mercenary city. The experts from the Beast God continent were repelled beyond the Northern Ocean. A few-minute changes did indeed occur to the relationship between the protector Changyang clan and the other clans, but the protector clans and mercenary city worked unprecedentedly united in repelling the Beast God continent. The resistance of the Tianyuan continent is futile. When the ruler comes out of seclusion, the great army of the Beast God continent will end the days of the Tianyuan continent. The people that Lankiros had brought were not the opponents of the 10 protector clans. Additionally, he himself was not as powerful as the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, so all he could do was throw down a threat before returning to the Beast God Hall on the Beast God continent. When Lankiros returned, he immediately arrived outside the door of the 98th floor. He narrated everything that had happened at the Tianyuan continent, with no deviation to what had actually happened. 5 years. I only need 5 years. I can make a breakthrough in 5 years, and at that time, I'll definitely make the Tianyuan continent pay a heavy price. I'll let the winged tiger gods stay on that continent for a little longer. An extremely overbearing voice boomed from the 98th floor. In the blink of an eye, several more months passed by. Currently, the white-robed artifact spirit stood outside the hall in which Jianchen was cultivating. He said, "Master, the seal of the origin energy will be released in 2 hours." Chapter 834. Infusing origin energy, the artifact spirit's voice passed through the many obstructions and was heard clearly by Jianchen. Jianchen sat with his legs crossed in the center of the completely sealed hall. Above his head, the sword spirits radiated with purple and azure lights, illuminating the entire hall. Right between them, there was a fist-sized monster core that was disappearing at a visible rate. It turned into a strand of chaotic force which radiated with destructive energy, entering Jianchen. After refining the Class 7 monster core, Jianchen slowly opened his eyes. "Ziying, Qingsuo, let's stop for now. We'll put the matter of refining chaotic force on the side temporarily." Ziying and Qingsuo stopped their refinement of chaotic force. They sensed the chaotic Niden in Jianchen's dantian, and they revealed a sliver of joy. Ziying said, "Master, if we continue with this speed, you'll reach the second layer of the chaotic body in just a few more years." A happy smile also formed on Jianchen's face. "Let's continue the refinement after I absorb the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force and reach Class 7. If it's possible, I really do hope to be able to raise the chaotic body to the second layer. I wonder just how strong I will become after reaching the second layer." Jianchen slowly stood up. After close to a year of secluded cultivation, he had refined several hundred Class 7 monster cores, adding hundreds of strands of chaotic force to his chaotic Niden, which made it grow larger once again. It was already the size of a dove's egg. Now that the problem of energy source was resolved, Jianchen required time. If he had another year, he would be able to increase the chaotic Niden to the size of an egg, returning it to how it was before. When the chaotic Niden reached fist-sized, it would be the time he would break through to the second layer. Jianchen exited the place that he had stayed for close to a year, before arriving at a side hall under the artifact spirit's guidance. As soon as he entered the side hall, Jian Chen's eyes lit up. His heart lost control and began to beat heavily because within the hall, he felt the vast and boundless origin energy of radiant saint force. It was all gathered in the very center of the building and sealed in there by an extremely powerful seal. None of it was able to leak out. The Tianyuan continent did not have any of the origin energy. The reason why it would exist in the Saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union was because it absorbed the surrounding Radiant Saint force and then refined it into origin energy all by itself. This was the only reason why there would be Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters on the Tianyuan continent. If the Saint artifact did not exist, no Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters would ever appear on the Tianyuan continent. The artifact spirit stared at the seal with mixed emotions. He had control over everything in the artifact space. Here, he was as great as a god. He was the absolute ruler here, able to control everything. However, only the seal before him lied beyond his powers. Even the artifact spirit had no idea when the seal was forged because when he had gained intelligence, the seal had already existed for an unknown number of years. Even after so many years, he was still unsure of the origins of the seal, even though he had become extremely powerful. He had tried to break it, but even when he used all he had, the seal did not even budge. He felt like he was bombarding a rock with eggs. Standing before the seal, Jian Chen's emotions fluctuated quickly. Reaching Class 7 as a Radiant Saint Master was extremely important to him. Once he reached Class 7, not only would he be able to revive his parents, he would even possess the strength to face off against Saint Kings. If Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters used the forbidden Arte God's descent, they could slaughter any and all Saint rulers. Even Supreme Saint Kings would feel greatly threatened. In the legends, the only Class 8 Heaven's Saint Master in all of history cast the God's descent once in the ancient times. He directly slaughtered 2 Saint Emperors. Meanwhile, if the president of the Radiant Saint Union cast the technique at the peak of Class 7, he had absolute confidence that he could slaughter the Saint King ancestor of the Tsar family. It could be perceived just how powerful and terrifying the God's descent was. It was a heaven-defying arte. However, casting the arte would come with an extremely great price. Although Jian Chen had used it once before, it was not the real thing. Only the form was there but not the intent, so he did not need to pay any great price. But after reaching Class 7, he would be able to cast the true version of the arte. However, he would need to offer up at least a century of his life every time he used it. The stronger the God's descent, the greater number of years was needed to be offered. It could cost up to several centuries, or a millennia, or even more than that. This was the reason why the arte was classified as forbidden by the Union. Unless one was at the end of the line, no one would ever want to cast the arte. Jian Chen waited silently for 2 hours, and the seal for the origin energy finally began to release by itself. A crack appeared and white light immediately shot out from the seal, illuminating the entire hall. Shortly afterward, origin energy of Radiant Saint Force floated out from the seal as visible white mist, slowly permeating the empty hall. Master, you only have 3 days to absorb the origin energy. After 3 days, it will be sucked into the seal again, before being sealed away once again, the artifact spirit said to Jian Chen. Jian Chen nodded. He forcefully suppressed his excitement and immediately sat down, beginning to absorb the origin energy. Jian Chen had learned the method of absorbing origin energy and breaking through to Class 7 from the artifact spirit long ago. He needed to infuse the origin energy into his soul, using it to change his soul, allowing the soul to morph. Once the soul morphed successfully, it would become more compatible with Radiant Saint Force. Not only would the speed for condensing Radiant Saint Force increase greatly, the strength when casting Radiant Arts would take a qualitative leap. Other than that, even the most basic healing power would improve vastly. Also, after the morphing of the soul, it would be able to hold the origin energy. With a strand of origin energy as a medium, It could absorb the surrounding radiant saint force and slowly refine it into origin energy, allowing the origin energy to increase. This was how a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master's strength was measured. However, this origin energy refined by individuals could not be absorbed by other Radiant Saint Masters. As a result, all Class 7 breakthroughs required the use of this artifact. Jian Chen sat cross-legged on the ground. He relaxed his mind, putting his effort into an attempt to infuse a strand of origin energy. Currently, he was going through an extremely crucial step in reaching Class 7. Only by infusing some origin energy into his soul could he begin absorbing it. He needed the origin energy to morph his soul. This was the most crucial part for breaking through to Class 7. Throughout history, there were many Class 6 Radiant Saint Masters who had reached this step but were unable to infuse origin energy into their souls and hence lost their opportunity of reaching Class 7. Jian Chen focused his concentration and his presence burst out from his body. He worked hard to infuse the origin energy. However, the origin energy seemed to reject the approach of Jian Chen's presence very much. No matter how he tried, he was unable to infuse even a single strand of it. Jian Chen did not become anxious at all. Currently, only 2 hours had passed, so there was still plenty of time. He constantly tried various methods to form a connection with the origin energy, persistently attempting to understand it. Finally, after half a day, Jian Chen successfully infused a strand of origin energy into his soul. Roping it in with his presence, the origin energy slowly approached his head, before entering his brain through the very top.
Boom.
Suddenly, Jian Chen's mind rumbled. As soon as the origin energy entered Jian Chen's mind, it transformed into a vast energy, filling up Jian Chen's entire sea of consciousness. It was beginning to change Jian Chen's soul with its property. However, 2 rays of light, one azure and one purple, sprang out immediately, blocking the movements of the origin energy. This power might be useless in the future, but it's of great use to master with his current strength. Qing Soal, let's give way. Ziying's voice sounded in the sea of consciousness, and soon afterward, the 2 obstructing rays of light disappeared. Without the obstruction of the purple and azure rays of light, the origin energy immediately began to infuse into Jian Chen's soul. His soul changed bit by bit, currently undergoing a metamorphosis. Jian Chen was drowned in the euphoria of his soul being refined. Currently, he could clearly feel his soul strengthening with lightning speed. Not only did his control and ability to sense Radiant Saint Force increase, even his presence strengthened quickly. It may not have directly increased Jian Chen's strength, but it brought great benefits. After some time, the first strand of origin energy was finally consumed entirely. Jian Chen could distinctly feel that his presence was now several folds greater than before, while the radius of it had increased from the previous 20 kilometers to 100 kilometers. Jian Chen did not pause at all after refining the first strand of origin energy, immediately attempting to infuse a second strand. Due to the fact that Jian Chen had already refined a strand, it was extremely smooth this time. Very soon, the second strand of origin energy had also entered his mind. Chapter 835. Reaching Class 7 with the infusion of the second strand of origin energy, Jian Chen's soul took another qualitative leap, becoming much stronger. The radius of his presence increased from 100 kilometers to 150. The bone-deep euphoria from refining the spirit almost caused Jian Chen to lose control and moan. The soul was the basis of a person. It was the origin of life. Without personally experiencing the refinement of the soul, it would be impossible for anyone to imagine just how great the euphoria was from deep within the soul. The absorption of the second strand of origin energy was much faster than before. Soon enough, the second strand was also absorbed, completely infused into Jian Chen's soul and causing his morphing soul to become even more powerful. The radius of his presence had also increased to 180 kilometers. The speed at which his presence strengthened slowed down the more he absorbed. Jian Chen immediately began absorbing a third strand of origin energy. Soon enough, it was completely infused into Jianchen, who then moved on to a fourth, fifth, sixth, as more and more origin energy of Radiant Saint Force was absorbed by Jianchen. His soul strengthened at an unbelievable rate. His presence had already reached a radius of hundreds of kilometers, currently stretching towards the thousands. The artifact spirit stood nearby, watching over Jianchen. He was there to prevent any accidents from happening as Jianchen absorbed the origin energy. He stared fixedly at Jianchen and said softly, "Master, you need to absorb as much origin energy as you can. The origin energy right now is like building a foundation for Master. It's extremely important because this relates to Master's future achievements. The more origin energy you infuse, the greater your future achievements as a Radiant Saint Master." The artifact spirit's words were heard clearly by Jianchen, but he said nothing in reply. Instead, his absorption speed increased distinctly. Jianchen himself understood that before him was a great chance. He had 3 days to absorb as much origin energy as he wished, but once this period passed, he would need to wait 50 years before he could absorb origin energy so freely again. This period of time was a little too long for Jianchen. Currently, he had only lived for a little over 2 decades. He had not even lived for half of that time. Meanwhile, as Jianchen absorbed the origin energy comfortably in the artifact space, the Radiant Saint Master Union on the distant Tianyuan continent instead announced some information that caused a very great commotion. The Union had actually pushed back the date at which the top 10 competitors could enter the artifact space to break through to Class 7, and no one was able to give a clear answer on how long the delay would last. As soon as this was announced by the Union, it spread through the entire city like wildfire. It then began to spread in all directions, causing a very great uproar between groups of Radiant Saint Masters. This was because ever since the Union was founded, the date for a chance to reach Class 7 every 50 years had never changed. It had been maintained for countless years, yet now the Union had suddenly pushed back that date. Many people fell into confusion immediately, especially those who were supposed to enter the artifact space. They even felt resentful of the Union, demanding a logical explanation. The Union only provided a vague explanation about it this time. They did not go into the details, hiding the fact that the Saint artifact had been lost as much as they could. Although there were also the 8 clans of the City of God and the 3 great clans that controlled the Holy Empire, they did not leak any part of it, and also demanded all clan members who knew this to be quiet. This was because those in command in all 3 clans knew that the Union would lose its unity among Radiant Saint Masters if the news was spread, and would collapse in a short amount of time. The Union may not have been controlled by the 3 great clans, but they were still a peak organization that belonged to the Holy Empire. Once the Union dissolved, it would decrease the Empire's overall strength. This was not something the 3 clans wanted to see. As a result, not only did the 3 clans withhold the information regarding the loss of the artifact, they even worked together with the Union to deal with this. Currently, the white-robed Quan Yukai lay lazily on a great soft bed in the huge castle of the headquarters. He stared blankly at the ceiling and muttered, "Just what the hell is the Union doing pushing back our time to enter the artifact to absorb origin energy? Sigh, I wonder when I can reach Class 7. And Brother Yang Yutian. I never thought he'd be a saint ruler. TSK, both a fighter and a Radiant Saint Master. It's never happened before on the Tianyuan continent. And that tiger cub by Brother Yang Yutian's side has an even more terrifying origin. It's a winged tiger god. Brother Yang Yutian is extraordinary. Not only is he an unprecedented genius himself, even the winged tiger god follows him. I expect that his future accomplishments will be immeasurable. But right now, he doesn't seem to be in a great situation. Almost the entire continent is searching for him, and apparently some protector clans have appeared. Sigh, with so many people searching for him, I wonder if he is still safe." In a secret underground basement in the Union, the president, Grand Elder, and over 20 elders gathered. They sat around in a mysterious fashion, vaguely creating a formation. At the center of it was the 5th elder. Currently, over 20 of them, all Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters, were working together to cast a secret technique to search the continent. They were attempting to find Jianchen and the saint artifact's whereabouts. After a long while, all the elders on the ground slowly opened their eyes. Heavy fatigue appeared on their faces. Sitting in the center of the formation, the fifth elder's exhausted face was disappointed. He sighed deeply and shook his head. He was disheartened. I still haven't found the whereabouts of Yang Yutian and the saint artifact. Not only are they missing from the continent, they're not even in the surrounding seas. Additionally, I can't feel the seal that I originally planted in Yang Yutian's mind at all. I really have no idea where he's hiding for him to be so difficult to find. Right now, the 10 protector clans and the ancient clans are still scouring the entire continent in search of Yang Yutian. They cast secret techniques often to search the entire continent, but they still haven't found him. Looks like Yang Yutian's received support from someone great. He's hiding in a space where even the 10 clans can't find, the president said gloomily. Yang Yutian's sister seems to be the holy maiden of the Arctic Ice God Hall. Do you think Yang Yutian's hiding in the Ice God Hall? An elder proposed. With that, all the elders furrowed their eyebrows. After a period of silence, the Grand Elder spoke out gruffly. If Yang Yutian's really hiding at the Ice God Hall, then even the 10 protector clans can't do anything, much less us. Today's the day which the seal on the origin energy is released. Yang Yutian is probably comfortably absorbing origin energy right now. When we find him, we can't let him off so easily, an elder said rather angrily. An elder immediately rebuked him with a cold smile after hearing this. So, what if we find Yang Yutian? Other than discussing with him politely to convince him to return the saint artifact of the Union, what else is there? Do you perhaps want to use force on him? You probably don't know his background then. Not only is he a descendant of the protector clan of Chongyang, he currently received the high regard of several great elders. Also, his eldest brother has become a disciple of the Pure Heart Pavilion. Other than all that, his sister Chongyang Mingyue is the holy maiden of the Arctic Ice God Hall. Do you really think our union has the power to take on all 3 organizations? You're right. Yang Yutian's background is something else. We, the union, cannot be too forceful when we confront him. Otherwise, we'll be in for a loss instead of regaining anything. An elder agreed. The president stood up and said with some exhaustion, "All right, let's not discuss this anymore, everyone. Right now, we still haven't gotten Yang Yutian back, so whatever we say is pointless. Let's all go rest first." We'll cast the secret technique once again after some time and see if we can find where Yang Yutian is. In the artifact space among the Fantasy Star Ocean, the origin energy of radiant saint force that floated from the seal was constantly absorbed by Jianchen. Hai's soul was like a bottomless hole. Even after infusing countless strands of origin energy, it showed no signs of being satisfied. It had never stopped absorbing origin energy. Currently, it was already the 3rd day Jianchen had spent absorbing origin energy. His presence had already become extremely powerful. If his presence 3 days ago was compared with right now, it would be like an ant compared to an elephant. Jianchen's presence could only cover a radius of 20 kilometers 3 days ago. Now, it could easily spread beyond 1,000 kilometers. The artifact spirit remained standing not too far from Jianchen, watching over him. He murmured, "Master's talent as a Radiant Saint Master is extremely great. The amount of origin energy he's absorbed has exceeded any Class 7 Radiant Saint Master in all of history. Even the current president would not be able to absorb so much." However, the president's already reached his limit in the absorption of origin energy. He can't infuse anymore, so he won't be able to break through to Class 8 no matter what for the rest of his life. Though, where is Master's limit? Chapter 836. Heiyu breaks through the artifact spirit remained standing not too far from Jianchen, watching over him. He murmured, "Master's talent as a Radiant Saint Master is extremely great. The amount of origin energy he's absorbed has exceeded any Class 7 Radiant Saint Master in all of history. Even the current president would not be able to absorb so much." However, the president's already reached his limit in the absorption of origin energy. He can't infuse anymore, so he won't be able to break through to Class 8 no matter what for the rest of his life. Though, where is Master's limit? But Master isn't an ordinary person. Otherwise, why would the two overlords of great origins follow him? Master will probably become the second Class 8, Radiant Saint Master on the continent, and continue with the glory that belonged to the ancient Class 8, Radiant Saint Master. Time passed slowly. Soon, it reached the end of the third day, and the cracked seal in the hall began to heal slowly at a visible rate. At the same time, a powerful suction force appeared, slowly sucking up the origin energy that had leaked out. Jian Qin knew that the seal was about to close up again. He could not help but reveal a sliver of anxiety. He knew this was a 1 in 50 years chance, so he did not want to miss it so easily. He wanted to take this chance to absorb a little more origin energy. I can't make it. Feeling the origin energy decrease rapidly, Jian Qin gritted his teeth. He diverted his attention from the incompletely infused origin energy in his soul and expanded his presence with all his might. He formed a great net, enveloping over hundreds of strands of origin energy before forcefully reeling them into a sea of consciousness. He was fighting for origin energy against the seal. As he did this, a thought flashed through Jian Qin's head. He pulled out a purple metal from his space ring and said, "This purple metal has the ability to store the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. Artifact Spirit, store some in there quickly." The purple metal was the exact same metal that the Grand Elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union had gifted Jian Qin. The artifact spirit accepted the metal and examined it. A sliver of astonishment appeared in his eyes. This metal actually contains a weird rock. It can indeed store a small quantity of origin energy. But someone's already left a sliver of origin energy in it. I'll erase it right now. The artifact spirit erased the origin energy left inside by the Grand Elder before swinging his arm. Immediately, several dozen strands of origin energy flew into the metal right before they were sucked away, all disappearing into it. It's a pity that its storage is so small. A couple dozen strands is already its absolute limit. If there was a larger piece of the rock, it could probably store even more. The artifact spirit sighed as he looked at the purple metal in his hand. The seal had finally closed completely. All the origin energy floating about in the surroundings disappeared, without even a strand remaining, and the entire hall returned to its initial peace. Jian Qin remained focused. He sat on the ground like before, refining the origin energy. Toward the end, he sucked in over 100 strands of origin energy. These strands currently floated about in his soul and were not completely refined or infused. Slowly, an invisible pressure gradually permeated the slightly dark hall. This pressure was not due to an aura but from the soul. It was possible to use this pressure to directly affect the souls of other people. Jian Qin had now become a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master. However, the disparity of strength between Class 7, Radiant Saint Masters was extremely great. There was only one way to increase a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master's strength, and that was to refine origin energy from Radiant Saint Force. The more origin energy they infused into their soul, the more powerful they became. Although Jian Qin had only reached just Class 7, the amount of origin energy he had absorbed in those 3 days was far beyond the levels of someone who had recently broken through. As a result, the moment he became a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master, Jian Qin's strength already exceeded anyone who had just broken through recently. In fact, he was even stronger than a few elders of the Union. The 100-odd strands of origin energy were constantly being refined in Jian Qin's sea of consciousness. The pressure originating from his soul also constantly increased. After close to an hour, Jian Qin finally refined it all. Currently, Jian Qin could sense that his soul had become much more powerful than before. Additionally, his ability to sense and control the surrounding Radiant Saint Force had reached a terrifying level. It seemed that he only needed a single thought to instantly cast a Radiant Arte and attack, without the need of charging up. The Union divides the strength of Radiant Saint Masters into 10 levels, while the levels between 5 and 10 are that of Class 7. I wonder what level I'm currently at, Jian Chen murmured. Master, you've already reached level 6. The artifact spirit's voice appeared in Jian Chen's mind. With that, Jian Chen rejoiced. He mumbled, I never thought that as soon as I broke through to Class 7, I would skip level 5 and reach level 6. It's a pity that those 3 days were too short. If I had some more time, my strength as a Radiant Saint Master would definitely not just stop here. I just wonder if I can reach Class 8 in the future. Master, your talent is very great. Your infusion speed of origin energy is extremely fast, the fastest of all Radiant Saint Masters I've seen. However, the higher your strength reaches, the more difficult it becomes to increase it. The amount of time you need will also increase, and every person's soul has a limit for infusing origin energy. It's this very limit that stops many Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters where they are unable to break through and reach Class 8. An example would be the President of the Union. I was able to tell that he had reached his limit long ago, so he will never be able to reach Class 8 in this life, even if he tries to use those unorthodox methods. Explain the artifact spirit. Jian Chen was in thought. He mumbled, is that so? Looks like whether I'll be able to reach Class 7 will depend on the limit of origin energy my soul will be able to hold. If my soul's limit is too low, no matter how great my talent is, I will never be able to reach Class 8. In the next moment, Jian Chen seemed to realize something. He laughed gently. Whatever. I'm a fighter. I primarily cultivate the chaotic body. Being a Radiant Saint Master is only a secondary identity. Class 7 and Class 8 don't mean much to me. The main reason why I was so frantic about reaching Class 7 was for my parents, as well as healing Xiao Bai's mother. The artifact spirit did not continue this topic. He extended the purple metal in his hand before Jian Chen and said, Master, this one has already stored some origin energy in here according to your orders. Though there isn't much, only several dozen strands. Jian Chen examined the purple metal in his hand and muttered to himself, I wonder if there really are materials that can store the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force in the world. Looks like I need to collect quite a lot of it. It'll be of great use in the future. Jian Chen put the purple metal away and left the hall. He did not absorb the origin energy stored in the metal. Leaving the hall, Jian Chen retrieved some more Class 7 monster cores from the artifact spirit before immediately going into seclusion, continuing his cultivation. Now that I've become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master, I have the ability to revive my parents, as well as heal the wounds of Xiao Bai's mother, Rum Guinness. As for Uncle Kendall's son, Sans, I only need to use a strand of origin energy to remake his destroyed saint weapon. One of the matters lingering in my heart can finally be laid to rest. But I still can't return to the continent right now. I need to strengthen quickly. Although I now have the ability to threaten Saint Kings, the forbidden arte cannot be used so easily. Its price is too great. Many thoughts appeared in Jian Chen's head, but soon afterward, he turned all of them into motivation. He dismissed any random thoughts he had, immediately closing his eyes and beginning to cultivate. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen stayed another year in the sane artifact. In that time, he constantly cultivated, relying on absorbing the energy in monster cores to increase his chaotic force. Going through large numbers of high-class cores, his chaotic Naiden had already become the size of a chicken's egg. The chaotic Naiden, which he had almost consumed entirely in the City of God, had been revived, allowing him to return to his previous peak. Even though that had happened, Jian Chen did not have any intentions of resting. He continued to endure the monotony and loneliness, silently in seclusion, working hard to absorb monster cores to slowly make his chaotic Naiden grow. His aim was to expand the Naiden to the size of a fist. Then it would be time for him to break through to the second layer. At the same time, outside the Saint artifact, the number of dragon souls floating about the mountains had increased. The depths of the Fantasy Star Ocean had almost become a paradise for dragon souls. They could be seen floating about in the mountain ranges everywhere like they were taking leisure strolls. And from time to time, there would be a long dragon roar. A huge door stood erect in the center of all that, connecting the sky and the earth. It radiated with great beams of light, resplendent and dazzling. Countless dragon souls passed through the door, coming in and out. This was the graveyard of the dragon clan, the dragon's necropolis. Suddenly, a powerful aura appeared in the necropolis. Like roaring waves, it spread outward towards the fantasy star ocean with an unstoppable force, enveloping the entire region in a short while. Roar! This aura was not from a member of the dragon clan, but from an outsider. It attracted the attention of all the dragon souls inside and outside the necropolis as soon as it spread out, especially due to the fact that the outsider's presence was in the dragon's necropolis. It triggered all the dragon souls. Immediately, deafening dragon roars flooded the entire fantasy star ocean. At this moment, no matter if it were the dragon souls in the necropolis or those roaming outside, they all roared loudly. Several tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dragons roared together. This commotion could literally be described as earth-shaking, causing mountain ranges to fall and the void to collapse purely from the sound. Chapter 837. Class 9 Dragon Souls. The roars from several tens of thousands of dragon souls were filled with absolute hatred. They did not have intelligence, but subconsciously, the dragon's necropolis had become their holy land, a holy land that could not be trespassed by outsiders. Yet at this moment, the aura of an outsider had appeared in the holy land of countless dragon souls. This agitated all of them. It triggered them. The roars from several tens of thousands of dragon souls threatened to collapse the world. The void trembled, the earth shook, and mountain ranges collapsed. The fantasy star ocean's appearance was finally changed in this very moment after countless years. The entire island shook violently, the ground jolting and opening up chasms thousands of meters deep. Many of the surrounding mountains directly exploded as they could not withstand the roars of over 10,000 dragon souls. The mountains and forests turned into a mess. Following closely, the dragon souls still roaming outside roared angrily, flying toward the necropolis with their greatest speed. In the necropolis, the golden divine dragon Rui Jin stood sternly. The mutated divine alligator Heiyu had broken through his concealment of dragon aura when he stepped into the 9th heavenly layer, alarming all the dragon souls in the necropolis. Currently, tens of thousand dragon souls roared together high up in the sky of the necropolis. They all rushed at where Heiyu was standing, each opening its mouth and spitting dragon breaths at his location. Immediately, the clustered dragon breaths covered the sky, shooting in from all directions with vast energy ripples. It caused the space in the necropolis to tremble. The dragon souls who spat dragon breaths varied in strength. The weakest were only Heaven Saint Masters, while the strongest were in the 9th heavenly layer, or the great perfection of the 9th heavenly layer as a Saint King. The surging energy ripples had even made the 9th heavenly layer Rui Jin feel a tingle down his spine. "Hey you! Quickly hide all of your presence," Rui Jin cried out gruffly. Afterward, he dodged the dragon breaths coming in from all directions. Heiyu, who had just broken through to the 9th heavenly layer, became extremely grim. He understood just how terrifying the necropolis was. Not only were there 9th heavenly layer Saint Kings or Saint Kings at great perfection, there were even dragon souls as powerful as Saint Emperors. Even though his strength had increased greatly, he was still faced with the threat of dying here. Heiyu immediately erased his presence. Afterward, he turned into a black streak of light, directly passing through the area with the weakest dragon breath and flying toward the exit of the necropolis. However, all the dragon souls had already locked onto him. Even though Heiyu erased his aura completely, he was still faced with pursuit. Countless dragon souls surrounded him from all directions, virtually forming a round seal, locking in the surroundings. They blocked all of Heiyu's paths of escape. A stern light flickered in Heiyu's eyes. He roared deeply and suddenly, and his body began to expand. In that instance, he turned into a 10,000-meter-long alligator, returning to his original form. Yu was a mutated divine alligator. Although he was not a beast of antiquity, he possessed great capability in battle that could rival beasts of antiquity. With a roar at the sky, he charged at the weakest location with full speed. With just a flash of great black light, Yu had already arrived before the seal formed from several dozen Class 7 dragon souls and a few Class 8 ones. He held back nothing, using his full strength. He did not pay any attention to the attacks of the Class 7 dragon souls, allowing them to strike his huge body. He devoted all his strength to handling the Class 8 dragon souls. In the end, after resisting the attacks from several dozen Class 7 dragon souls, he finally destroyed the few Class 8 dragon souls. Without pausing, he made use of every second, flying toward the outside of the necropolis. Roar, roar, roar. At this very moment, several louder, clearer sounds rose from the necropolis. Together with it, an earth-shatteringly vast aura appeared from the very depths of the necropolis. It was so powerful that it had already reached an astounding level, as if it possessed the power to destroy the surroundings with just its aura. Suddenly, the huge necropolis began to tremble violently. Several terrifying ripples of energy that were capable of destroying worlds emerged from the very depths of the necropolis. A few dragon souls with lengths reaching tens of thousands of meters long slowly appeared from the huge gravestones in the very depths. With their appearance, all the other dragon souls in the necropolis, including the Class 7 and 8 souls, stopped chasing Yu. They all faced the huge dragon souls that had just emerged, laying their bodies on the ground. They seemed to be greeting a lord upon arrival. Class 9 dragon souls. Yu was shocked and immediately turned sheet white. He had almost been shocked to the point that his soul exited his body. Immediately, he pushed his speed to its limit, fleeing toward the exit. Jin stood closely with an extremely grim expression. He immediately struck out, sending a clump of dragon aura flying as he yelled out, Yu, hide in this dragon aura or you'll be doomed for sure. Yu immediately turned back into his human form, shooting into the dragon aura from Jin with a flash. At the same time, he completely erased his presence and energy traces on him. Roar! A Class 9 dragon's soul cried out with a deafening roar. It caused the entire space to tremble violently, and afterward, it directly spat a mouthful of powerful dragon flames at the entrance to the space, rushing toward Yu with a temperature that seemed to be able to burn space. Although Yu's presence was concealed by the dragon aura, there was still some residue outside the aura. It was not enough to trick the Class 9 dragon soul that was as powerful as a human Saint Emperor. The dragon flames turned into a roaring fireball, shooting across the sky like a meteor. It directly flew toward Yu, several times faster than he could move. Yu was grim. Currently, he flew in a straight path with the dragon aura shot out by Jin, unable to change directions. The dragon flames that surged up from behind followed the same route. If he were to continue like this, the dragon flames would catch up very quickly. Yu looked back at the dragon flames that closed in quickly, before glancing at the entrance in sight. He gritted his teeth and his speed increased abruptly, directly charging out of the dragon aura and shooting toward the entrance, like a flash of lightning. Without the concealment of the dragon aura, Yu's presence was immediately exposed to the senses of all the dragons in the necropolis. Immediately, the Class 9 dragon souls roared and exhaled a few more dragon breaths that shot toward Yu with incomparable speed. However, Yu had already charged out of the necropolis into the Fantasy Star Ocean at this moment. He immediately changed his direction and flew toward the mountain ranges down below, avoiding the dragon breaths that tailed him. However, there were still many dragon souls outside the necropolis. As soon as he left it, he was surrounded once again by the dragon souls outside. Though, they seemed to be relatively weaker, allowing Yu to forcefully kill a way out with his great strength. Roar! A great dragon roar reverberated in the necropolis. Vast auras caused the entirety of the necropolis to tremble violently as the Class 9 dragon souls all left their den, coming out in pursuit. Crap! I need to leave here immediately. Yu became heavy-hearted. He lost all intentions to stay here any longer, immediately charging toward the outside, hoping to leave the Fantasy Star Ocean before the Class 9 Dragon Souls caught up. Hide your presence immediately. Don't act brashly. At this very moment, Rui Jin's stern voice appeared in Yu's head. Rui Jin had already appeared beside Yu at a certain time. He immediately grabbed Yu's shoulder, flying to the side. Yu immediately gave up on the idea of moving all by himself. He concealed all of his presence, handing himself to Rui Jin to handle. Rui Jin used his own dragon aura to envelope Yu, constantly changing directions among the mountain ranges as they flew. He shook off the dragon souls that tailed them. Roar! Great dragon roars resounded in the surroundings. A humongous golden dragon had extended from the necropolis. A Class 9 dragon soul had already left the necropolis, now appearing in the Fantasy Star Ocean. However, now that Yu was with Rui Jin, the foreign presence was completely hidden by the pure dragon aura that Rui Jin radiated. Even though it was a Class 9 dragon soul with shocking strength, in the end, it possessed no intelligence. It did not detect Yu at all. It was not the only one to lose track of Yu. The other dragon souls did too, each roaring angrily as they floated about in the surroundings. After searching and failing to find Yu even after half a day, the Class 9 dragon soul could not help but be furious, producing an earth-shaking roar at the sky. Rumble. The power of this roar was even more greater than the previous roars of tens of thousands of dragons together. Terrifying sound waves directly blew up several mountain ranges, while countless mountain peaks collapsed in the surroundings. Even the dragon aura around Yu shook violently, almost collapsing. The dragon roar, together with the vast dragon aura, had even made Yu shiver slightly. A sliver of concealed but extremely deep fear appeared in the depths of his eyes. After the mountains collapsed, the saint artifact hidden in the cave was also exposed. Even though it did not radiate with energy ripples, it was still a foreign object. It was immediately sensed by several dragon souls without the rocks isolating its presence. Immediately, the surrounding dragon souls placed all their attention on it, flying over from all directions. The saint artifact immediately glowed with a faint golden light. Afterward, it shot off toward the distance with a swish, unwilling to stay put. Countless Class 7 and 8 dragon souls exhaled dragon breaths. The dragon breaths filled the sky, surging over from all directions and enveloping everything in its path. It swallowed the saint artifact very quickly. Although the saint artifact was only supportive in nature and did not possess powerful offensive abilities, it was not something that the Class 8 dragon souls could damage thanks to its toughness. The artifact directly passed through the sky full of dragon breaths, continuing outward without any decrease in speed. It did not sustain any damage at all. Suddenly, the Class 9 dragon soul that had emerged from the necropolis spat a mouthful of dragon flames. It turned into a sea of fire, enveloping the saint artifact. Its terrifying heat caused the surrounding rocks to melt into lava, turning the region into a land of magma. Swallowed by the dragon flames, the golden tower immediately became red-hot. The strength of the Class 9 dragon soul was equivalent to a human Saint Emperor. The attacks from Saint Emperors were enough to damage the artifact. Chapter 838. Assistance from Rui Jin. Although the Class 9 Dragon Soul had the ability to damage the Saint artifact, just dragon flames were not enough to deal anything significant. At most, it could just heat up the Saint artifact. The Saint artifact stared at the scorching dragon flames and transformed into a golden streak of light, shooting across the sky. It directly shot out of the dragon flames and flew toward the exterior of the Fantasy Star Ocean. Roar! The golden Class 9 dragon soul produced a long roar once again. Shortly afterward, it shrunk to only 100 meters in length, flying out of the necropolis in pursuit of the Saint artifact. It clearly did not intend to let it go. Afterward, a few more Class 9 dragon souls also shot out of the necropolis with shrunken bodies and chased the artifact with lightning speed. Currently, the artifact was being completely piloted by the artifact spirit. Its speed absolutely could not match the Class 9 Dragon Souls. They possessed the abilities of their former lives. They caught up instantly. One of the Class 9 Dragon Souls directly opened its mouth and bit at the Saint artifact. Screech! The Class 9 Dragon Soul's ethereal-looking teeth seemed tangible. Its teeth were extremely tough, and intense sparks were produced as it scrapped the artifact. Combined with the screeching of metal, the dragon's sharp teeth actually left a shallow mark on the artifact. The golden glow of the artifact grew brighter and brighter as it began to tremble violently. It immediately shot out of the dragon soul's mouth just as the dragon's soul widened its jaws again. The artifact flew into the distance with even greater speed than before. Although the artifact spirit also possessed the strength of a Saint Emperor, it could only be wholly used inside the artifact space. If it were outside, it would struggle to even deal with a Saint ruler. This was because the artifact was not primarily an offensive treasure, so the power of its attacks outside was pitiful. In the direction the artifact fled, the space suddenly cracked open. A blurry and huge dragon claw swept downward at the artifact. This ordinary-looking strike was filled with great amounts of dragon aura. Wherever the claw passed by, the surrounding space would immediately rip and produce a space of empty darkness.
Cling!
The sharp claws forcefully swept across the Saint artifact. The fist-sized artifact was immediately sent flying far away, and a clear scratch appeared on it. Even the space within the artifact was greatly affected by this heavy strike. The entire space began to tremble violently, and the hazy white sky constantly churned. It was as if a serpent was swimming around, causing the clouds to surge and the space to tremble. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress had already emerged from their secluded cultivation. They had already received the notification from the artifact spirit. They currently stood side by side in the air as they stared grimly at the constantly trembling artifact space. What's happened? Have the dragon souls outside discovered us? An odd light flickered through the heavenly enchantress's mesmerizing eyes. Her eyebrows were furrowed with faint worry. This was because she knew extremely well that the most dangerous aspect of the Fantasy Star Ocean was certainly those mindless dragon souls. It was definitely not those fallen living corpses or the region full of formations. If they encountered the living corpses or formations, there was a chance for victory or escape. On the other hand, once they met dragon souls, it would be almost guaranteed death. Even Supreme Saint Kings would face the danger of dying, because once they provoked one dragon soul, it would draw in even more dragon souls with greater strength. Artifact Spirit, what's the situation outside? Jian Chen asked with a gruff voice. Master, we're currently facing the attacks from several Saint Emperor dragon souls. The artifact spirit's grim voice sounded out of nowhere. Both Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress sucked in a breath of cold air, and they paled slightly. Several Saint Emperor dragon souls. As soon as they thought of this lineup that was already invincible on the Tianyuan continent, they felt their mouths go dry, and a feeling of despair permeated their minds. Artifact Spirit, do you have confidence in escaping from the Class 9 Dragon Souls, and can those Dragon Souls break through the artifact? Jian Chen asked gruffly once again. Currently, the Saint artifact was their only hope. If they left the artifact space, they would certainly die against the Class 9 Dragon Souls. After all, these Dragon Souls possessed no intelligence. There were no chances of negotiation. The Dragon Souls still possess abilities from their former lives. If they use secret techniques of the Dragon Clan and strike with their full strength, the Saint artifact will not be able to sustain attacks from that degree. Master, I will do all I can and see if we can escape from them. The artifact spirit's voice boomed sternly. At this moment, the artifact spirit had completely lost its calm and cool because it was also dancing on the edge of life or death now. Inside the Fantasy Star Ocean, the tower-shaped golden Saint artifact was sent flying by the Class 9 Dragon Soul. It directly collided with a great boulder that was a dozen or so kilometers away and was deeply embedded in it.
Bang!
Shortly afterward, the boulder exploded. The Saint artifact shot out as it glowed with dense golden light. transforming into a golden streak of light as it flew along the ground through the messy mountains. Using the rocks as cover, it quickly fled toward the outskirts of the fantasy Star Ocean. It could only shake off the Class 9 dragon souls behind if it left this place. The dragon souls all roared one after another from behind, closely pursuing the Saint artifact. They seemed to be pursuing enemies from blood feuds, unwilling to give up. The surroundings that the dragon souls passed would immediately face destruction. If it did not turn into chasms thousands of meters deep, it would become a land of magma or an icebound plain. This was all due to their dragon breaths, which would destroy countless heavenly resources permanently. However, in the process of fleeing, the Saint artifact received a few more attacks. The markings on the artifact increased, but fortunately, the Class 9 dragon souls did not use any secret techniques. Otherwise, the damage to the Saint artifact would not be limited to this. Meanwhile, the artifact was also knocked about the depths of the fantasy Star Ocean. After half a day of fleeing, it still remained in the deepest parts. As the Saint artifact was knocked flying by a Class 9 dragon soul, Rue Jin suddenly appeared beside it with Heiyu this time. Rue Jin directly grabbed the Saint artifact and with a flash, he disappeared with Heiyu. The dragon souls growled deeply as they flew past the Saint artifact's previous location, slowly coming to a stop. They all floated around midair as they looked about with their huge dragon heads, searching for the artifact's presence. Rue Jin stood on a cliff over 10 kilometers away with a hand on the artifact. He radiated with a great dragon aura, concealing the presences of the Saint artifact and Heiyu. He was a member of the Dragon clan himself, so he did not become a target of the Dragon Soul's attacks. Artifact Spirit, only by following me can you be safe here. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape from the island at all, Rue Jin said deeply. Meanwhile, he stared at the golden, 100-meter-long Class 9 dragon soul far away, with mixed emotions. The gaze was sorrowful. A thought emerged from the Saint artifact. The artifact spirit was currently communicating with Rue Jin. After a while, Rue Jin glanced toward the mutated divine alligator beside him. Heiyu, it'll probably be a few days before the island can recover its peace. Having you always following me is still not safe in the end. You should return to the artifact space first, where you might as well borrow the artifact spirit's origin energy of Radiant Saint Force to heal your missing arm. Heiyu glanced at the Class 9 dragon souls with some lingering fear, before nodding silently. Afterward, a white light shot out from the artifact. It enveloped Heiyu before disappearing, sucking him into the artifact space. Rue Jin carried the palm-sized Saint artifact in his hand. He looked toward the Class 9 golden dragon again. It was pacing around as it had lost track of the artifact's presence. With mixed emotions, Rue Jin slowly kneeled down. From afar, he bowed his head down 9 times toward the Class 9 dragon soul and said, "Grandson pays respects to ancestor." Rue Jin did not leave the island. Instead, he took the Saint artifact with him to a safe area and carved out a cave, temporarily settling down to wait for everything to calm down outside. Inside the artifact space, Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress remained floating in the air grimly. They had no idea about the situation outside. At this very moment, the space before the two rippled violently. Shortly afterward, a black-robed old man appeared out of nowhere. To no surprise, it was Heiyu, the mutated divine alligator. Heiyu's sudden appearance immediately caused the heavenly enchantress to narrow her eyes. The heavenly enchantress did not know about the details of the Saint artifact, so she thought that Heiyu wanted to do horrible things to them. She immediately became cautious. When Jian Chen saw Heiyu properly, his eyes also narrowed abruptly. He had obviously recognized Heiyu and asked out of reflex, "Why would you appear here?" Heiyu glanced past Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress indifferently. He paid no attention to them and instead said to the empty space, "I hope Sir Artifact Spirit can heal my missing arm." The Artifact Spirit appeared out of nowhere. He saw Jian Chen's doubt and immediately opened his mouth and said, "Master." The Artifact Spirit explained what happened outside to Jian Chen. When they learned that the Golden Divine Dragon, Ruijin, was currently using his dragon aura to conceal the Saint artifact and that they were now safe, the two of them could not help but relax slightly. However, when He was shocked when he heard the artifact spirit refer to Jian Chun as master. A storm brewed in his heart. He was perturbed. He had stayed in the artifact space for thousands of years. He knew extremely well just how powerful the artifact spirit was. It was an existence that could rival human saint rulers, yet currently, the powerful spirit took a mere saint ruler as a master completely willingly. It was unbelievable to him. However, He soon remembered that even the winged tiger god was with Jian Chun, so his doubts disappeared. He could already tell that Jian Chun was extraordinary. His background and origin was probably beyond imagination. Realizing this, Heiyu's gaze toward Jian Chun immediately experienced some changes. He no longer dared to look down on Jian Chun, who was a mere saint ruler. Only at this moment did Jian Chun realize that Heiyu's left sleeve was empty. He asked out of curiosity, "Senior, is your arm missing due to the Class 9 dragon souls outside?" If it was before, Heiyu would not bother responding to Jian Chun's question with his status. However, it was different now. He said indifferently, "My arm was not severed by the Class 9 dragon souls, but by a weird formation in the sky of the island." With that, his thoughts jumped to a conclusion. He immediately thought of the forbidden sky 10 meters above. He gained a clear understanding of just how terrifying it was once again. He had never thought that even the mutated divine alligator would also need to pay such a great price as a saint king of the 8th heavenly layer. Chapter 839. Obtaining the dragon's saliva. The artifact spirit pointed, and a strand of origin energy immediately appeared out of nowhere. It turned into a white streak of light before disappearing into Heiyu's body. As the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force entered Heiyu's body, a powerful white light immediately began to radiate from him, enveloping him entirely. Class 7. Radiant Saint Masters could heal missing limbs or even revive the dead because of the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force that they controlled. Only this origin energy had such heaven-defying abilities to heal the limbs of anybody. When Jian Chun had initially entered the City of God, the white tiger inflicted a minor injury on a young master of a clan there when it bit off his finger. Since the finger was kept after being bitten off, just a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master was enough to heal it. That was not regrowing limbs. Enveloped by the thick Radiant Saint Force, Heiyu's empty left sleeve could be seen moving slightly through the bright white light. His severed left arm was currently regrowing at a visible rate. 2 hours later, the white light around Heiyu disappeared. At the same time, a new, abnormally white and soft arm had reappeared in his left arm socket. The skin was silky smooth, like that of an infant's. Heiyu moved his new arm and his expression was filled with joy. Shortly afterward, he clasped his fist toward the artifact and said gratefully, "I thank Sir Artifact Spirit. Heiyu will not forget this good deed. If there is the chance in the future, I will return it." The artifact spirit smiled slightly. Healing Heiyu's arm only needed a twitch of a finger for him. He had basically watched Heiyu grow up, so he naturally held a special attachment to Heiyu. With his arm back, Heiyu's mood clearly took a great turn. He looked toward Jian Chun and actually asked on own accord, "I wonder how I should refer to this brother?" Heiyu did not hold any arrogance. Ever since the artifact spirit called Jian Chun Master, Jian Chun had already been elevated to a status equivalent to his own in Heiyu's heart. "I'm Jian Chun." Jian Chun clasped his hands. "So it's brother Jian Chun, right? So why has brother Jian Chun come to the Island of Dragons?" Heiyu's tone was extremely indifferent. He did not look down on Jian Chun, but with Jian Chun's current strength, he still did not deserve the respect of a 9th heavenly layer Saint King. After a slight pause, Jian Chun replied, "Actually, we came here in search of the dragon's saliva. The grass grows in the depths of the Fantasy Star Ocean, but unfortunately, we encountered those dragon souls as soon as we reached the deeper parts. We were soon forced to hide in the Saint artifact. Senior, have you found where the dragon's saliva grows?" "Dragon's saliva?" Yu furrowed his eyebrows. Right now, the outside has already become an utter mess from the Class 9 dragon souls. It's like an ancient battlefield with no signs of life. Even if there was dragon saliva, it would no longer exist. With that, Jian Chen's expression changed. His heart immediately became heavy. If he was unable to find 100,000-year dragon saliva, his grandfather Chongyang Zuyunkong would not be able to reach Saint Ruler. He would pass away very soon. Seeing Jian Chen's sudden change in expression, Yu guessed that perhaps the dragon saliva was extremely important to Jian Chen. After a slight hesitation, he said, "Now, there's perhaps only one place that dragon saliva still grow." Jian Chen's eyes flowed. He looked at Yu hopefully and asked, "Please tell me, senior." "The graveyard of the dragon clan. The dragon's necropolis," Yu said gruffly. "The dragon's necropolis." Jian Chen murmured softly. His face was bitter. He had never seen the necropolis, but he did not even need to think to know that it was extremely dangerous. It was the home of the dragon souls. It was not a place that he could intrude. The necropolis is indeed extremely dangerous. Inside, there are Class 9 dragon souls. Entering without the strength of a saint emperor would just be seeking death. However, Rui Jin would be an exception. He's a golden divine dragon, the kings of the dragon clan. He is able to come in and out as he pleases. Perhaps you can get Rui Jin to assist you in obtaining dragon saliva. Yu continued. Yu's words reignited the flames of hope in Jian Chen's despaired heart. He immediately ordered the artifact spirit to communicate with Rui Jin outside, to request his assistance in searching for the dragon saliva. After a slight deliberation, Rui Jin agreed to Jian Chen's request in the end. Afterward, Rui Jin re-entered the necropolis with the artifact in his hand. He picked 6 grasses and passed them through the artifact to Jian Chen. These dragon salivas would slowly grow after the saliva of dragons fell on the ground. All of the grasses in the necropolis were planted in the ancient times. Before the dragon clan had disappeared, these grasses were left behind by a few old dragons who had come to the necropolis right before they passed away. Countless years had passed since then, and every piece of the grass was a priceless treasure. If brought outside, it would raise a storm of blood. Not only would it attract many saint rulers to fight for it, even a few saint kings would be unable to resist its enticement. Inside the artifact space, Jian Chen carried the grass in his hand. He was filled with joy. He had no idea at all just how valuable the dragon saliva was, and all he thought about was how his grandfather could finally reach Saint Ruler. Standing beside Jian Chen, the heavenly enchantress would glance at the grasses in Jian Chen's hand from time to time. A sliver of desire appeared in her beautiful eyes. She knew some things about the dragon's saliva, and she could already tell that these grasses had aged for a long time. They were beyond 100,000 years in age, which even made her show great interest. However, the grasses were obtained through Jian Chen's own connections. She had not helped out at all, so she could not ask for some. Jian Chen carried the dragon's saliva like a valuable treasure, but the excitement in his heart calmed down very quickly. Noticing the heavenly enchantress's gaze, he immediately understood. Keeping 2 grasses for himself, he passed the 4 other grasses to the heavenly enchantress and said, "Senior, you probably need these grasses more than me. You should take all the remaining ones." The heavenly enchantress stared blankly at the 4 grasses in Jian Chen's hand. All the grasses from Rui Jin were 100,000 years old, or even older. She knew very well just how valuable and precious dragon saliva was. Right now, Jian Chen was giving her 4 of them in one go. This filled her with disbelief, forming waves in her heart. After a while of hesitation, the heavenly enchantress did not decline it. She extended her hand to take the grasses from Jian Chen's hand and thanked him softly. She was unable to resist the enticement of the grasses. Each of the 4 dragons' saliva contained vast amounts of the 3 vital energies. It was too helpful for her to turn down. The heavenly enchantress carefully placed the grasses into a jade box before depositing it into her space ring. After some hesitation, she secretly sent Jian Chen a message. "The dragon saliva is extremely valuable. It's a holy resource that virtually only exists in legends. If it's possible, you might as well ask for some more. The heavenly enchantress's voice was extremely soft and carried a beautiful, nature-like tone. Unconsciously, her voice carried an odd charm. It made Jian Chen's heart feel numb when he heard it. Jian Chen looked at the heavenly enchantress with an odd light. Even her voice was so charming, he struggled to imagine just how beautiful she was underneath the veil. Feeling Jian Chen's odd look, the heavenly enchantress also seemed to realize something. She hurriedly avoided his attention and quickly becoming as composed as before. Her bewitching gaze soon became cold. Jian Chen hesitated slightly before finally following through with the heavenly enchantress's suggestion. He said to the sky, "Senior, is it possible for you to give me some more dragon saliva? It's of great use to me." Jian Chen did not get a reply. After a while, another 6 grasses appeared in the artifact space, surrounded by white light. Each grass was extremely aged. "Is that enough?" Through the assistance of the artifact spirit, Rui Jin's voice was clearly broadcasted into the artifact space. Jian Chen looked toward the heavenly enchantress in question. Noticing Jian Chen's look, she gently stamped her feet. Internally, she called him an idiot. She gritted her teeth before sending a message once again. "The more the better." Jian Chen spoke out immediately. "It's not enough. The more the better." "What? The more the better? You really have insatiable greed." Rui Jin's angry voice sounded from outside. Hearing Jian Chen's reply, the heavenly enchantress swore secretly once again. She did not think that Jian Chen would be so direct. Heiyu's deep gaze swept past Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. He chuckled. "Rui Jin's right. You really do have insatiable greed. Each grass approaches 1,000,000 years in maturity. Rui Jin's gifted you a dozen of them, and you still don't feel like it's enough. You really don't know how to appreciate things. It's pity that I'm now of the 9th heavenly layer, so these grasses are useless to me. Otherwise, I really would ask for a grass or 2 from Rui Jin." Jian Chen laughed awkwardly. He did not say anything in reply. A while later, Rui Jin's voice finally came again from outside. "Whatever. The island's already become like this. Leaving behind these dragon saliva is useless. I'll pick some of it for you, because of Sir Artifact Spirit and the Winged Tiger God." Soon afterward, another white light flashed in the artifact space. A pile of several dozen grasses appeared before Jian Chen, each approaching 1,000,000 years in maturity. "Thank you, Senior." Jian Chen expressed his gratitude before immediately sucking the pile of dragon saliva into his space ring. Afterward, he magnanimously gifted the 12 grasses he had obtained earlier to the heavenly enchantress, which caused her hands to tremble slightly. The next few days were extremely peaceful. Rui Jin waited for the dragon souls on the island to calm down, before finding a remote place to release the people within the artifact. "Something's happened to the island. I want to remain here to search for the reason. Are you staying or leaving?" Rui Jin said to them. "Rui Jin, I, Heiyu, am a friend of yours. My strength has now skyrocketed. At the very least, it's enough to not hold you back. I'll stay here with you to find the reason for the changes," Heiyu said without any hesitation. "There's still something else I need to find in the fantasy, Star Ocean. I will be staying behind. Before I find it, I don't want to leave," Jian Chen said. After some hesitation, the heavenly enchanter said, "The change to the Dragon's Island has always been a great mystery. Experts from the 10 protector clans had come in many times in the past to attempt to find the reason for the change, but they all returned in despair. Since you want to search for the reason, I will accompany you. Although I'm not as powerful as the 2 seniors, I am well versed in the path of the Zither. It has some unique aspects, which may be of help to the 2 seniors at crucial times." Chapter 840. Lunestrin Pit. Since you all want to do it yourselves, I won't say any more. We may face many unexpected dangers in the future journey, so please be careful, Rui Jin said. "Senior, don't worry. If we really do face dangers that we can't handle, we'll enter the artifact space immediately," Jian Chen said. He had a clear understanding of the power of the Saint artifact now. Unless they encountered Saint Emperors, nothing was able to damage the Saint artifact. He did not believe that there would be more Saint Emperors other than the Class 9 Dragon Souls. Jian Chen would not be terrified even if they really did encounter Saint Emperor living corpses. This was because the Dragon Souls were different from the living corpses. The souls maintained everything they had learnt in their past lives, so their strength in battle was not any weaker than their peaks. Their innate talents or abilities were the reasons why they could damage the Saint artifact. However, Saint Emperor corpses would not have this ability. They did not have any battle techniques at all, and could only use the most basic attacks, which would not be enough to damage the Saint artifact. Moreover, it was questionable if there were really any Saint Emperor living corpses. This was because only people that died after the transformation of the Fantasy Star Ocean would be reanimated as living corpses. The Saint Emperors from the 100 races that died before would not count. Several days later, Rui Jin only left with them after waiting for the entire island to settle down. They continued into the depths of the Fantasy Star Ocean as Rui Jin hid their presences. Brother Jianchen, may I ask what you are still searching for? Heiyu suddenly asked from beside Jianchen. Because of the Saint artifact, Heiyu's attitude towards Jianchen had changed rather significantly. Jianchen pulled out some stardust from his space ring. This is what Junior is searching for. This is extremely important to Junior. Before Junior finds it, Junior will not be leaving the Fantasy Star Ocean. What's that? Heiyu stared curiously at the stardust in Jianchen's hand. This is stardust, a material for forging weapons. Jianchen provided him with a rough explanation for the uses of stardust. He did not hide anything. He knew that in this world, probably no one other than him knew the true use of this material. Forging weapons? Heiyu became even more doubtful. He asked out of confusion, "Weird, don't you humans use saint weapons? Why forge a brand new weapon?" Jianchen's idea of forging weapons seemed to be extremely novel among the group. Rui Jin and the Heavenly Enchantress both turned around to look at Jianchen, their eyes flowing with a weird light. Jianchen hesitated slightly before speaking. To be honest, Junior Saint weapon has already been shattered, no longer able to refine another Saint weapon. As a result, Junior can only search for materials to forge something suitable. What? Your Saint weapons already destroyed? The Heavenly Enchantress could not help but cry out while disbelief flooded her eyes. Along the way, she had clearly observed the strength displayed by Jianchen. She could not imagine that Jianchen, who had fought over 100 living corpses with a ruler armament and slaughtered a Class 7 Dragon Soul with lightning speed, was actually a fighter with a destroyed Saint weapon. It was unbelievable. Rui Jin and Heiyu also stared at Jianchen in amazement, their eyes filled with astonishment. Although they had grown up in the Saint artifact, they knew a few things regarding the outside world. The Heavenly Enchantress calmed down very quickly. She swept past the stardust in Jianchen's hands and revealed a thoughtful expression. She said, "I might know some information regarding the stardust." Jianchen rejoiced. He said, "Senior, I hope you are able to tell me this information. You're also a Saint ruler right now. You should call me the Heavenly Enchantress. That's how other people call me." "I'm not used to being called Senior," said the Heavenly Enchantress. Her voice was indifferent and cold. With that, Jianchen hesitated slightly before replying, "All right. Please tell me about the stardust, Heavenly Enchantress." After pondering slightly, she said, "If I recall correctly, this should only exist in the Lunastron pit. But it's extremely dangerous inside it. Many Saint Ruler living corpses stay there, and there are even Saint King corpses. There is only a slim chance of survival if you don't possess the strength of a Saint King. Whereabout is this Lunastron pit?" Jianchen asked. The pit is not in the depths of the Fantasy Star Ocean but under an extremely hidden cliff in the middle region. It tunnels straight into the ground and is extremely deep, explained the Heavenly Enchantress. Jianchen turned to Rui Jin and Heiyu. "Seniors, I hope you can help out Junior and come to the Lunastron pit with me to obtain some stardust." "Whatever, it's not like we have anything better to do right now. Rui Jin, why don't we pay a visit to this pit?" Heiyu spoke first, assisting Jianchen. Rui Jin was a golden divine dragon. He was extremely honorable and did not originally want to do things for an unfamiliar junior. However, as soon as he heard Heiyu's words, he could only accept it. All right, I'll go to the Lunestrin pit with you. Jian Chen's group of 4 immediately flew to the middle region of the fantasy Star Ocean. They quickly returned to the region where they had collected heavenly resources with the White Tiger. Finally, they found the entrance of the pit under a cliff according to the geography described by the Heavenly Enchantress. The entrance to the pit was a huge hole, 100 meters wide. The hole directly sunk into the earth and was pitch black. When the group stood at the edge of the unfathomably deep pit, they could sense a ghastly, bone-chilling wind from it. Rui Jin stood at the edge and stared into the darkness with interest. His eyebrows were furrowed, and his originally uncaring expression instantly became rather stern. I feel an extraordinary presence from the Lunestrin pit. This hole is not simple. When we go down, you too should be cautious. Both Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress were slightly surprised. Even Rui Jin became serious, and he had reached the 9th heavenly layer as a Saint King. It immediately caused the two of them to become much more vigilant. Let's go down. I want to see just what dangers are down there. I hope they won't disappoint me. Heiyu sneered confidently before leaping down first. Afterward, Rui Jin, Jian Chen, and the Heavenly Enchantress jumped into the pitch-black hole together, quickly descending into the darkness. The Lunestrin pit was completely enshrouded in darkness. Nothing could be seen. The abilities of Saint Rulers were also suppressed here, which prevented Jian Chen from sending out his powered-up presence. He could only rely on his physical senses, falling down 10 meters behind Rui Jin. After falling for 3,000 kilometers, some light gradually appeared beneath their feet. The light expanded in size as he quickly descended before it finally enveloped Jian Chen. His vision was no longer pitch black, now filled with multicolored light. It was extremely pretty, and the light would glimmer from time to time. The glimmers were extremely packed, and they twinkled like the stars in the sky. This is an image of the night sky, and that of an extremely rare nebula. Rui Jin's astonished voice appeared from rather close by. He said in surprise, "The appearance of this thing on the island would definitely cause a commotion. Weird. Why can't I recall anything regarding this place from my inherited memories? Did it only appear on the island after my ancestor was sucked into the sane artifact? There's actually the image of the starry sky here. No wonder it's called the Lunestrin pit. Its name must have been coined from the scenery here." Jian Chen suddenly realized something and murmured softly. As the images of the starry sky quickly flashed past them, they felt like they were swimming through the night sky. The multicolored nebulae and glimmering stars quickly flowed by. The 4 of them continued their descent down the pit at great speeds. They had no idea just how deep it was. They had fallen for at least 5,000 kilometers, yet they had still not hit the bottom. Along the way, the 4 of them had also encountered many Saint Ruler corpses, which were all dealt with easily by Heiyu. They would meet some Saint Kings from time to time too, but they were still unable to withstand a palm strike from Heiyu. The 4 of them soon passed the 10,000-meter mark. The living corpses along the way also constantly increased. If it was just Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress, it would definitely take them quite some effort and energy to deal with them. But right now, there were 2 supreme 9th heavenly layer Saint Kings leading the way. No matter how many Saint Ruler corpses there were, it was not enough to stop their advance. Most of the time, Heiyu only needed a single palm strike, and his vast energy would be enough to disintegrate a dozen or so Saint Ruler corpses. With their constant descent, Jian Chen slowly sensed that the hole seemed to be permeated with an odd energy. The temperature here would constantly change, sometimes bone-chillingly cold, and other times scorching hot. It was as if they constantly traveled between 2 regions of opposite climates. This place really is rather weird. Heiyu, who lead the way, spoke out from below them. He also felt that the Lunestrin pit was odd. Rui Jin constantly gazed around and said with a gruff voice, "This hole doesn't seem to be naturally formed. I'm positive that this hole did not exist on the island before. It must have appeared after the island changed. Moreover, This hole plunges in a straight path from the surface right into the earth. It's as if a massive object fell from the sky and carved this out. That's reasonable. This tunnel is just too straight. There are no bends at all, and images of the starry sky actually appear here. If you connect these facts, it's as if something from outer space had really collided with the island before creating such a deep crater. Heiyu agreed. They continued their way down. When they reached 30,000 meters, they finally hit solid ground. They had arrived at the bottom of the hole. The pit still permeated with colorful nebulae. Starlight glimmered faintly, as if they were each stars that floated in space. They were innumerable, filling up the entire place. Jianchen glanced around and discovered that the bottom was extremely large. It stretched as far as the eye could see, and he could feel that the weird energy was even thicker here. The surrounding temperature constantly alternated between a frigid coldness and a scorching heat. It's not fire-attributed energy, nor water-attributed energy, nor ice-attributed energy. Just what is this weird energy? Rui Jin mumbled to himself as he stared at the surroundings. Even his inherited memories contained no information on the weird energy here. At this very moment, a strand of scorching energy fused with a strand of the frigid energy midair. It immediately formed a presence that was extremely unfamiliar, yet still rather familiar to all of them. Rui Jin's eyes lit up with a light of shock. This energy is actually the exact same energy as the unknown energy on the island. Is the transformation of my island due to the existence of this hole? Chapter 841. Stardust Jianchen. The heavenly enchantress and Heiyu were astonished by Rui Jin's words and immediately focused on it with their senses. They discovered that the energy created when the extremely hot and extremely cold energies fused was indeed extremely similar to the energy in the island sky. They seem to be the same. So the weird energy on the island is formed like this, and these two extremely hot and extremely cold energies only exist in the Lunastron pit. Moreover, the appearance of the pit is an oddity, as if it was created from the crater of a meteor. Do the changes of the island really originate from here? Heiyu deduced. The two energies can't have appeared out of nowhere. There must be an origin for them, Rui Jin said gruffly, before beginning to search the surroundings. Jianchen, the heavenly enchantress, and Heiyu also began to search the bottom of the pit, hoping to find the source of the two energies. This presence really is so familiar, yet it's not at the same time. Qing Sua's chime-like voice suddenly rang out in Jianchen's head. Qing Sua, do you recognize this energy? Jianchen communicated with Qing Sua with his thoughts. Master, we are indeed slightly familiar with the energy here, but it's not this type of energy, Ziying replied. A thoughtful look appeared in Jianchen's eyes. He did not say anything and continued to search his surroundings instead. After he traveled 100 meters, some dust that glimmered slightly on the ground caught Jianchen's attention. Jianchen squatted down and gently grabbed a handful of the glimmering dust and closely examined it afterward. A smile appeared on his face. Stardust, this is stardust. I've finally found it. I never thought that stardust really would originate from the Lunastron pit. Casting his gaze out, he saw the glimmering stardust scattered on the ground like a thin layer of sand. It covered the entire region, stretching as far as his eyes could see. Jianchen did not hesitate at all after finding the stardust. He immediately pulled out a bag from his space ring and began to collect the stardust handful after handful. In other worlds, stardust was known as an energy-gathering dust. Other than forging the azulate swords, it could also gather the energy of the world. It was extremely helpful to fighters. If someone had enough stardust to place into a sect, the sect's energy of the world would immediately skyrocket, increasing the cultivation rate of everyone there. It would forge a solid foundation for a large organization in the future. This stardust is very useful to the Chongyang clan. Now that I've come here after so much trouble, I need to collect more of it. Jianchen thought. Master, the stardust on the ground is all junk quality. Don't collect that. Collect the stardust floating in the air. Suddenly, Ziying's voice appeared in Jianchen's head.
What?
Junk. Jian Chen was shocked. He glanced at his half-full bag of stardust, and then looked toward the glimmering lights that floated in midair like stars. He saw that every glimmer of light was the size of a rice grain, much larger than the sand-like stardust on the ground. Additionally, they glowed with a much brighter light. They were extremely beautiful. Jian Chen asked out of curiosity, "Ziying, are those also stardust?" "Yes, master. Those are also stardust floating in the sky, and are all of higher quality. They are much better than the junk-like stardust on the ground." Ziying's confident voice sounded in Jian Chen's head. Glancing at the bag of stardust again, Jian Chen hesitated slightly. He did not throw it away, and instead tied up the bag and placed it into his space ring. Afterward, he pulled out another bag, beginning to collect the stardust floating in the sky. As the stardust in the air was extremely well dispersed, Jian Chen's collection was extremely slow. He needed to grab them grain by grain with his hands. "All of you come over right now." At that very moment, the heavenly enchantress's voice came from the distance. Hearing it, Jian Chen immediately stopped his collection, running in the heavenly enchantress's direction with quick strides. When he got there, he realized that Rui Jin and He Yu were one step faster and had already arrived. Right before the three of them lay a human corpse. They did not know how long it had been dead for, but its appearance had not changed at all. Jian Chen examined the corpse curiously. He could feel the weird energy in the surroundings constantly entering the corpse and slowly fusing into its bones. This weird energy just happened to be produced when the extremely hot and extremely cold energies fused. It's a saint ruler. Looking at it, he's already been dead for thousands of years, but there's no sign of decomposition at all, Rui Jin said with a deep voice. He stared at the corpse with interest. "I can feel that there are some changes currently occurring in its body. It's currently transforming into something like the living corpses. Look, it's the weird energy here that made those who had passed away gain an unkillable body, and with a weird method it reanimates them." At this very moment, the corpse on the ground snapped open its eyes without any prior signs. Its eyes were dull, without any signs of life. It immediately produced a great roar, echoing through the entire pit. Afterward, it immediately stood up from the ground and hurled a fist to Rui Jin, who was the closest. Rui Jin's lips curled into a sneer of disdain. His palm struck the corpse's chest with lightning speed, and the powerful energy directly shook the corpse to dust and scattered it in the air. However, the scattered dust immediately began to reform midair after a short while. It actually condensed into its previous form, throwing a strike at Rui Jin. Rui Jin remained expressionless. He struck out with his palm once again, turning the corpse into dust. This happened 6 times in total before the corpse finally consumed all its energy and was unable to reform itself. It turned into a pile of white dust on the ground. "Looks like the transformation of the island really does originate from here," Rui Jin said gruffly. His face was overcast. He had basically confirmed that the Lunastran pit was the culprit of the changes to the island. But just where have my clansmen gone? Rui Jin's face was filled with loneliness. In this world, as of today, perhaps he was the only dragon left in existence. Roar. At this very moment, a great beast roar boomed in the distance. Combined with the sound of many footsteps, countless living corpses rushed over from all directions. In the vast combined presence, there were even a dozen or so supreme saint kings. The heavenly enchantress and Jian Chen became rather stern. However, Rui Jin and He Yu remained as usual. They were calm and unperturbed. Soon afterward, a dense crowd of corpses appeared before them. The Lunastran pit was where the living corpses were formed, so there were even more of them here than on the island. They were all drawn here by the roars of the first corpse. "I never thought there would actually be so many here. It looks like there's at least a few thousand. Trying to kill these unkillable monsters will be quite tiring. Rui Jin, you handle it." He Yu turned to Rui Jin. Rui Jin swept his gaze across the surroundings. Beating them to the point where their bodies can no longer reform will indeed be quite tiring. "Whatever, leave it to me." As he spoke, Rui Jin's hand varied from seal to seal in front of him, before bellowing, "Secret technique of the Dragon Clan, seal." An invisible energy spread out in all directions in a circular fashion with Rui Jin as its center. It spread out for several kilometers before gradually disappearing. As it expanded, all the corpses that rushed over from the surroundings came to a screeching halt, immobilized and frozen in their running postures. Even the Saint King corpses were no exceptions. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings became extremely quiet. It was so quiet that even if a needle was dropped, it could be heard clearly. Jian Chen's heart was filled with shock when he saw this. He had observed Rui Jin's terrifying strength once again. The power of the seal cannot last for too long, 2 hours at most. "We should quickly find the source of the weird energy," Rui Jin said. The four of them did not scatter, traveling into the distance together in search of the weird energy source. Jian Chen had a bag hanging by his waist, collecting the floating stardust as he followed the 3 others. His hands moved about in a flurry. They had almost become blurs. He was currently collecting the nearby stardust at an extremely terrifying speed. The heavenly enchantress noticed Jian Chen's collection of stardust. She immediately remembered that Jian Chen had given her 12 precious dragon saliva in the saint artifact, and after some hesitation, she said, "Let me help you out." With that, the zither of the demonic cry disappeared from her hands, and she began to grab at the stardust in the air with her hands. "Thank you, heavenly enchantress." Jian Chen smiled gratefully at her. The heavenly enchantress said nothing in reply. Her hands danced about quickly and flexibly, grabbing the stardust around her before throwing it into the bag on Jian Chen's waist. In front, Heiyu turned around and saw their actions. He chuckled. "I wonder when you will finally grab all the glimmers of light if you keep going at them like this. Whatever, let me help you out." With that, Heiyu immediately gaped open his mouth and bellowed, "Cosmic vacuum, suck." A great suction force appeared from Heiyu's mouth. Immediately, wild gusts of wind appeared in the pit, and all the stardust floating in the air was drawn right in front of Heiyu. In just a few seconds, a large pile of stardust had already appeared in front of him. The quantity was immeasurable. Each grain of stardust was closely stuck to the others, without any air in between. It had essentially formed a meter-wide ball. Seeing this, Jian Chen became tongue-tied. With just his cosmic vacuum, Heiyu had sucked up all the stardust in a radius of several kilometers. If he were to collect all of it by hand, it would have taken him at least a day. "Thank your senior." Returning to his senses, Jian Chen hurriedly expressed his gratitude by clasping his fist. Heiyu smiled uncaringly. "This is all just a small matter. It's as simple as lifting a finger. Of course, if you really do want to show your gratitude, you should let me use the artifact spirit when I search for it to heal my wounds in the future, should I be heavily injured." "Of course. You don't need to worry about that. If there's any place that Junior can help out through the artifact spirit, Junior will definitely do so," Jian Chen said. He too understood that Heiyu would not just provide assistance for nothing. Afterward, Jian Chen stored all the stardust sucked over by Heiyu into bags excitedly. Only after filling up 3 large bags did he finally store away all the stardust. Chapter 842. Traversing through outer space. Having come this far, Jian Chen had completed what he needed to do in the fantasy Star Ocean. No matter if it was the extremely valuable dragon's saliva or the stardust, he had collected more than enough. The dragon's saliva in particular, the dozens of grasses all approached 1,000,000 years in maturity, and combined with the fact that they were almost extinct, it made them even more valuable. Each grass was like a priceless treasure on the continent. "I've obtained another material for forging the azulate swords. I just wonder how many are left," Jian Chen thought. He greatly anticipated the day where he could forge the 2 swords, and he felt an extremely strong intuition that the power of the swords would not disappoint him at all. He could feel this from just the sword spirits. The swords to the sword spirits were like a human's body to his soul. If they lost their body, no matter how powerful their soul was, they would still be extremely weak. This could be observed with the falling of saint rulers. The bodies of saint rulers were extremely powerful, but once their souls fled their body, they could be easily wiped out. Right now, the sword spirits were just like that, a soul without a body. Even when they were weakened, they were already so powerful. Once they fully recovered and entered a suitable vessel, Jian Qin could not imagine just how powerful they would become. Although he had fulfilled what he needed in coming here, Jian Qin had no intention of leaving. Instead, he ventured onward in the Lunastran pit with Rui Jin and the others. He was also extremely curious about the transformation of the island that occurred all those years ago. Other than this, the sword spirits had even sensed a familiar energy here. This was also a target of Jian Chen's continued investigation. The area of the Lunastran pit was unknown. Jian Chen followed behind Rui Jin and He Yu. They traveled for a dozen or so kilometers in one direction, but still had not reached the end. When they traveled over 30 kilometers, figures gradually appeared in their sights. All these figures were humans or magical beasts that had become living corpses, currently frozen in a running posture. Seeing this, Jian Chen's complexion immediately became odd. These corpses were trapped here by Rui Jin's secret technique from the Dragon Clan before. The four of them stopped their steps simultaneously. They stared at the frozen corpses ahead in shock. Only after a while did Rui Jin speak with a deep voice. "We've actually come back to where we were before. The Lunastran pit really is mystical. Is this perhaps a formation?" He Yu exclaimed in wonder. "This formation is extremely great, much more profound than the formations that my Dragon Clan uses. Even I did not sense that I had fallen into a formation at all. Additionally, I haven't been able to find any information regarding this formation in my inherited memories. Perhaps this formation was formed naturally after the island changed?" Rui Jin murmured, with his eyebrows furrowed. "This is the 8 trigrams disorientating formation. How is this possible? The 8 trigrams disorientating formation is why would it appear here?" Suddenly, the shocked voices of the sword spirits sounded in Jian Chen's head. "Ziying, Qing Sua, you recognize this formation? Is there a way to break it?" Jian Chen asked curiously. "We indeed recognize this formation. It's the 8 trigrams disorientating formation, but how can this formation appear here? Is there anyone else in this world who knows it?" "Impossible." Ziying's voice was filled with disbelief. He was in extreme great shock. And this 8 trigrams disorientating formation is the complete thing. The person who set it down must have an extremely high understanding of the 8 trigrams disorientating formation. Has someone from our previous world come here before? Ziying murmured. He was filled with doubt. "Ziying, Qing Sua, it's not like we can come to a conclusion about this right now. You should tell me if there's any way to break through this formation first," Jian Chen said. "We're extremely familiar with it." "Master, walk according to the steps we dictate," Ziying said. Jian Chen nodded slightly, before turning to the 3 others. "I have a way to break through the formation. Seniors, please follow me from behind and imitate my footsteps." With that, the 3 of them stared at Jian Chen in amazement. They clearly were extremely astonished and skeptical about Jian Chen's ability to break through the formation. The 3 of them hesitated for a while, before they all followed behind him. They decided to trust Jian Chen this once to see if he had a method to break through the formation or not. "Pay attention to my footsteps. You must not take a step wrong. If you do, you won't be able to break out." Jian Chen warned everyone, before using his mind to communicate with the sword spirits. He began to step back and forth with an extremely profound method according to the sword spirits. There were 49 steps required in total to walk out from the formation. When he took the 8th step, the surroundings immediately began to change. He discovered that he had actually arrived in a vast starry sky. Afterward, Rui Jin, He Yu, and the heavenly enchantress all appeared behind Jian Chen. When they realized they were now in a vast starry sky, they all stared blankly. They were extremely shocked. "This really is a mystical set of steps. I've only walked about in the radius of 10 meters, Yet I've actually arrived in this place. Is everything before me an illusion, or have I really come to outer space? Hayes said in shock. He could not tell whether what he saw right now was real or fake. Jian Chen observed the surroundings. He furrowed his eyebrows and closed his eyes in thought. It's not an illusion. It's real. We've really come to outer space. The formation was cast down by someone great with terrifying abilities. He used a formation to connect a part of the outer space before forming a bridge into somewhere unknown. The steps we're taking right now to walk out of the formation just happens to match the bridge that leads to the other side. Every step matches perfectly with an extremely crucial point of the bridge. Stepping wrongly would be like stepping off the bridge and falling into the water. If we fall off into the water, what would be the outcome? Rui Jin asked with a deep voice. Although what Jian Chen said was like a fictitious story to the three of them, they believed it firmly. After communicating with the sword spirits, he explained the information he had learned from them. I don't know too. This formation connects worlds. It takes up an extraordinarily vast space. Everything before us is real. We've followed the bridge and arrived in outer space, and only by following it can we reach the very end successfully. If we take a step wrong during this time, perhaps we will return to the Lunastron pit, or maybe we will directly become lost in the vast outer space, never able to find the way back ever again. Hearing Jian Chen's words, even Rui Jin and He Yu, who were 9th Heavenly Layer Saint Kings, had a change in expression. They were extremely powerful, but that was only on the Tianyuan continent. In outer space, they would seem insignificant. This was because outer space was not a place that even Saint Emperors dared to carelessly set foot in. At least, they did not dare to travel too far in it. Otherwise, they would lose their sense of direction and even lose the ability to distinguish between left, right, up, or down. It really is difficult to imagine just how terrifyingly powerful the person who cast this formation down was. He actually extended it into outer space. Unbelievable. He Yu sighed in amazement, his voice filled with sincere respect and admiration. What ability! Even Saint Emperors are far from being able to do something like this. Perhaps only those who have surpassed Saint Emperor can do this. I just wonder if all of this has anything to do with the winged tiger god, Rui Jin said with a deep voice. Let's not talk about this for now. Everyone follow my footsteps closely. Don't deviate from them or it'll be dangerous, Jian Chen said solemnly, continuing on his way with profound steps. All of them immediately shut up, carefully following Jian Chen's steps in the empty space. With every step they took, the surrounding starry space would undergo some minute changes, as if they had traversed an extremely great distance with each step. When the four of them took the 13th step, the scene before them suddenly changed. The starry space around them disappeared, and they had arrived at a circular tunnel 10 meters in diameter. It was chaotic around the tunnel, with nothing that could be seen. This is the spatial tunnel, Jian Chen said with a deep voice. What spatial tunnel? The heavenly enchantress asked subconsciously, out of curiosity. This was the first time she had ever heard of something called a spatial tunnel. I don't know either. Jian Chen shook his head. He had obtained all this information from the sword spirits. Everything here was extremely unfamiliar to him, and most of it had even surpassed the range of his knowledge. The heavenly enchantress, He Yu and Rui Jin all rolled their eyes at Jian Chen. They all secretly swore. Since you don't know, how are you able to name it? They traveled through the tunnel step by step. When they reached the 40th step, the tunnel suddenly began to tremble violently. Soon afterward, a powerful storm of energy suddenly appeared far away and quickly rushed toward the group. Jian Chen's expression changed abruptly. He cried out, "Crap, we've encountered a spatial storm that's quite common among the stars. We need to enter quickly." With that, Jian Chen's footsteps suddenly sped up, quickly advancing forwards. The three of them behind also became extremely grim. They all followed Jian Chen closely. None of them had any idea whether they could return back to where they came from after becoming lost in the vast, endless space. The spatial storm rushed toward them from behind, quickly surging at the four of them. It forced the four of them to advance as fast as they could. Right now, Jian Chun completely ignored the three behind him. He took several steps consecutively, completing the 49th step very quickly. As the last step fell, Jian Chen's vision suddenly opened up. The spatial tunnel and the spatial storm that surged behind him all disappeared, as if he had arrived in a different world. It was extremely peaceful in the surroundings, without any dangers. Jian Chen had no time to observe this foreign world. He hurriedly turned around to look back and only saw a ripple in space. The purple-dressed heavenly enchantress appeared before Jian Chen, slightly panic-stricken. Her forehead was wet with sweat, clearly due to being overly anxious. When she saw that she had finally left the damned spatial tunnel, the heavenly enchantress immediately relaxed slightly. She roughly scanned the surroundings, before turning around and looking backward, waiting for Rui Jin and Heiyu. Very quickly, 10 seconds passed. However, Rui Jin and Heiyu did not appear before Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. Jian Chen's complexion became ugly. He felt an ill omen and said with a deep voice, "Have the two seniors been sucked into the spatial storm?" The heavenly enchantress's complexion also changed slightly. After a while, she said, "Let's wait here for a little longer." With their strength as 9th heavenly layer Saint Kings, they shouldn't face dangers that are too great. Afterward, Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress waited for another 2 hours. However, Rui Jin and Hei still did not arrive. "Looks like the two of them really can't make it," Jian Chen said hoarsely as he sat on the ground with his legs crossed. His complexion was not very great. Although he had only met Rui Jin and Heiyu recently, they had helped him after all. It made Jian Chen feel rather horrible. Moreover, losing them was equivalent to losing two extremely powerful experts. The heavenly enchantress sat silently nearby with her zither in her hands, but she was stern. In this foreign world, there were an unknown number of dangers. Without two 9th heavenly layer Saint Kings, their future journey would be extremely difficult or even life-threatening. Sigh, I should have sucked them into the artifact space. Why didn't I think about it back then? Jian Chen smacked his head regretfully. Chapter 843. Inyang Qi Jian Chen calmed down very quickly. He looked around and realized that he was currently in an endless wasteland. It was desolate, without any grass or signs of life. There was no sun or stars in the sky. It was a hazy gray and did not even have clouds. The heavenly enchantress stood up. She looked about sternly and said with a soft voice, "How do we return?" After some silence and thought, Jian Chen replied, "I don't know either. However, since that person put so much effort into constructing a spatial tunnel that crosses through the stars on the Dragon's Island leading up to here, I believe there's definitely some secret hidden here. It definitely won't be that simple. Let's go and see if we can obtain something unexpectedly over there." Jian Chen led the way. The heavenly enchantress hesitated slightly before closely following Jian Chen. She had no clue where they had come to, and now, the only thing she could do was follow Jian Chen, in hopes that he could find a way out. At this very moment, an ancient, desolate presence appeared in the far-off distance. It was vast and boundless, quickly expanding into the distance with a soul-shaking might. Feeling the presence, the expressions of two changed greatly. Before the presence, they felt exactly how puny they were, as if they currently facing an endless starry sky. They felt like even an ant was more significant than them. The pair could not even think of resisting before the presence. Short. Why afterward, two colors, black and white, appeared beyond the horizon. They plunged into the sky like two pillars, radiating with an ancient and desolate presence. Both of them unconsciously looked at the two pillars of light. Afterward, their minds rumbled. Currently, they simultaneously envisioned a foreign scene. They witnessed the chaos before everything, as well as the birth of worlds. Wake up. At this very moment, a powerful shout reverberated through Jian Chen's head. It woke him up and the previous scene of chaos completely disappeared. He returned to reality. Above his head, the two sword spirits had already appeared. Jian Chun was not the only one awakened. Even the heavenly enchantress beside him returned to her senses from the powerful shouts of the sword spirits. Waking up, the heavenly enchantress immediately noticed Ziying and Qing Sua, who floated above Jian Chun. Shock and curiosity immediately appeared in her beautiful eyes. Ziying, Qing Sua, what did I just see? Jian Chun asked. In his head, the scene with the primordial chaos constantly flashed through his head. Master, don't think about that for now. Right now, your cultivation level is too low. The stuff on that level is not something you should meddle with. If I didn't wake you up, your consciousness would have been forever lost in the scene of primordial chaos until your consciousness dispersed and your soul was wiped out, Ziying said sternly. Ziying's right. Master, you can't meddle with that right now, otherwise, it'll be certain death. Qing Sua agreed. The primordial chaos. Did I just witness the scene where this world was created? The heavenly enchantress also heard the sword spirits' voices and murmured gently. Qing Sua looked toward the heavenly enchantress. It's not the creation of this world, but the entire space and universe. Anyway, stuff on that level is far from anything you should ever meddle with. Knowing more is not beneficial in this case. Then why do you understand it so well? Who are you? The heavenly enchantress asked curiously. Currently, she was unable to tell whether the sword spirits were human or ghosts. Ziying and Qing Sua did not continue to pay any attention to her. They all looked at the two pillars of light that surged toward the sky in the distance. Their expressions were mixed, grim while also pleasantly surprised. That's a strand of yin-yang qi transformed from chaos. So it was that. No wonder I felt like the energy in the Lunastron pit was rather familiar. The energies there were affected by the presence from here. That was why it carried a sliver of familiarity, Ziying mumbled to himself. What? Yin-yang qi? Jian Chun was astounded. He understood the origins of the sword spirits quite well. They themselves were created from a strand of yin-yang qi and had gained intelligence after countless years. Is this yin-yang qi the same as the energy within the two of you? Jian Chun followed up closely with a question. When the heavenly enchantress heard his words, she was immediately stunned. She stared at Ziying in shock. She had never thought that the two ethereal forms would be transformed from a mysterious energy. The sword spirits nodded together, and Ziying said, Correct, it's just like that. Master, go over there quickly. If we can absorb that yin-yang qi, we should be able to recover much of our strength. Ziying's voice carried a sliver of excitement. With that, Jian Chun also rejoiced. Afterward, he rushed off into the distance without any hesitation. The heavenly enchantress stood where she was for a short while, before also rushing off and following Jian Chun closely. As soon as Jian Chun and the heavenly enchantress approached the yin-yang qi, an extremely cold energy and an extremely hot energy suddenly appeared, permeating into the surroundings. Jian Chun's body suddenly jolted, and his steps came to a screeching halt. His face immediately became bright red, while a terrifying heat began to radiate from his body. Jian Chun immediately sat down with his legs crossed. His face was boiling red with heat. He could only feel that a scorching energy had entered his body, like a red-hot branding iron. It radiated with a terrifying heat that was destroying his body. Even with the strength of his chaotic body, he was unable to withstand it. Even chaotic force was unable to wipe it out. Instead, it slowly trickled into a sea of consciousness. Meanwhile, the heavenly enchantress's expression also changed abruptly. She immediately became sheet white. An extremely cold aura began to radiate from her, and there were vague signs of the ground freezing. She had also encountered a situation like Jian Chun, though the energy within her was frigid rather than scorching. Wherever the energy passed by, her body would be frozen. The energy currently flowed toward her sea of consciousness, as if even her soul was about to be frozen. Ziying, Qing Sua, what is this energy? Even my chaotic force can't repel it. Jian Chun frantically communicated with the sword spirits. Currently, He had no way at all to stop the advance of the scorching energy. Once it entered his sea of consciousness, he did not know whether it would burn his soul or not. Crap, this is the supreme yin and supreme yang qi from the yin-yang qi. It's extremely pure and not something Master can resist right now, Ziying cried out. The yin-yang qi is formed from the chaotic force present before the universe. Does that mean my chaotic force is unable to restrain it? Jian Chen's voice carried a sliver of anxiety. Master, your chaotic force is too weak. It can't even be considered as true chaotic force. It's unable to match up with this supreme yang qi. Qing Suo explained. Then what should I do? Is there any way to stop this supreme yang qi? Jian Chen's voice became more and more worried. The supreme yang qi radiated with a terrifying heat in his body. His chaotic body would not be able to withstand it for too long. His organs felt like they were on fire, producing waves of violent pain. Outside Jian Chen's body, red ripples of air that were vaguely visible spread out. It was heat from his body, and it caused the surrounding temperature to skyrocket. But beside him, the heavenly enchantress sat on the ground with her eyes closed. Pain appeared on her face. She radiated with an extremely frigid coldness that formed a thick layer of ice in a meter radius around her. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress were each absorbing the supreme yang and supreme yin qi. They radiated with either heat or coldness. The characteristics of the two qi were polar opposites, contrasting sharply with one another. Ziying floated above Jian Chen. He glanced at the heavenly enchantress, who radiated with coldness. After some hesitation, he said, Master, there is a method, but it might be difficult for you. Just what method is it? Say it. I can't last much longer. Jian Chen said hurriedly. The supreme yang qi in his body was like a burning flame that slowly inched its way toward his mind. Master, you and that girl beside you each absorbed the supreme yang and supreme yin qi. If you want to neutralize this energy, both of you must cooperate. You must cancel it through using a method to balance the yin and the yang, and then absorb it. This will bring great benefits along with it, Ziying said. He carried a rather weird expression. Tell me exactly what I need to do, Jian Chen ordered frantically. The exact method is to, Ziying immediately explained it to Jian Chen. After learning the way to balance the yin and the yang, Jian Chen's expression became weird too. He said with a forced smile, Ziying, are you joking?
How can I do that?
Is there no other way? Master, there's no other way except this. This is the only way you can neutralize the supreme yin and supreme yang qi. The two qi are extremely pure, so once you cancel it out and absorb it, not only will it bring great benefits by increasing your strength, your body and soul will also adapt to the energy. If you ever encounter the supreme yin or supreme yang qi in the future, you won't become like this, Ziying said sternly. However, he hid one thing from Jian Chen. Even if the supreme yang qi reached his sea of consciousness, it would pose no harm to him, because Ziying himself was formed from the supreme yang qi of the yin-yang qi. Chapter 844. The balancing of yin and yang, Master. There's no other way except this. This is the only way you can neutralize the supreme yin and supreme yang qi. The two qi are extremely pure, so once you cancel it out and absorb it, not only will it bring great benefits by increasing your strength, your body and soul will also adapt to the energy. If you ever encounter the supreme yin or supreme yang qi in the future, you won't become like this, Ziying said sternly. However, he hid one thing from Jian Chen. Even if the supreme yang qi reached his sea of consciousness, it would pose no harm to him, because Ziying himself was formed from the supreme yang qi of the yin-yang qi. However, the sword spirits could only protect Jian Chen and not the heavenly enchantress. Jian Chen carried an odd expression, while his face was full of hesitation. He struggled to make a decision. The method to balance yin and yang mentioned by Ziying was the matter of a man and woman embracing each other. He felt extremely awkward about it. Suddenly, the muscles on Jian Chen's face began to spasm. His face was full of pain. The supreme yang qi in his body was currently burning away at his vitality and flesh. It was as if scorching flames currently flowed at his chest, drawing closer and closer to his head. Meanwhile, Jian Chen's entire body had become like a red-hot branding iron, now bright red. The terrifying heat had turned his clothes to ashes.
Arg!
A howl resounded from his side. It was filled with pain. The heavenly enchantress radiated with surging coldness. The supreme yin qi had already turned half of her body into an ice sculpture. What is this energy?
It's so terrifying.
Am I going to die here today? The heavenly enchantress's face was filled with sorrow. She had already tried countless methods, but none of them were able to halt the advance of the frigidness within her. Feeling how his body quickly approached a critical point, Jian Chen knew that the heavenly enchantress was also in a similar life-or-death situation. He ended up speaking up. "Heavenly enchantress, I do have a method to neutralize the danger." Jian Chen shamelessly hinted at Ziying's method to the heavenly enchantress. When she heard Jian Chen's words, she became torn between rage and shame. She glared viciously at Jian Chen with her beautiful eyes. They contained an unconcealable anger.
What? How dare you?
I'd rather die than dash. When she reached this point, her expression changed once again. She produced a moan filled with pain. The situation inside her body was worsening. She had already arrived at death's door. All signs of life were frozen within her, while the supreme yin qi currently expanded toward her head. Even her soul would be frozen, and after that it would slowly fuse with the supreme yin qi. In the end, her soul would be wiped out completely. Jian Chen became redder and redder. The supreme yang qi radiated with a terrifying heat that roasted his body like a stove. If he did not have his chaotic force and was just an ordinary saint ruler, this strand of supreme yang qi would have dissolved his body already. They would not be able to last so long. Even saint kings would not be an exception. The yin yang qi originated from chaos. This chaos was true chaos, completely incomparable to Jian Chen's half-assed chaotic force. Just a tiny portion of yin yang qi transformed into supreme yin and supreme yang qi was enough to kill saint rulers or even saint kings. Master, there's not much time left. The supreme yang qi in you will reach your sea of consciousness in a dozen or so seconds, and the girl beside you will also die. Ziying's voice carried some sense of urgency. If they missed this opportunity, the supreme yang qi in Jian Chen's body would be wasted. Jian Chen's face remained hesitant. He turned around toward the half-frozen heavenly enchantress, who was in great pain. His gaze gradually became determined. Gritting his teeth, he directly lunged toward the heavenly enchantress and tightly embraced her frozen body. The heavenly enchantress immediately snapped open her eyes. Her alluring phoenix eyes lost the calmness from before and were now filled with panic. She tried as hard as she could to raise her arms that were frozen to the point of absolute numbness in an attempt to push Jian Chen away, but she just could not do so with the current condition of her body. What are you doing? You bastard. Go away. The heavenly enchantress's voice was filled with panic. She was a strong woman who protected her purity. Even if she died, she did not want to be sullied by others. Heavenly enchantress, please forgive me. This is the only method for us to survive. Otherwise, we're doomed, Jian Chen said rather bitterly. You bastard, go away. The heavenly enchantress pushed at Jian Chen with difficulty. She wanted to get Jian Chen away from her, but she was incapable of that. Jian Chen tightly hugged the heavenly enchantress. The coldness radiating from her just happened to be the counter for the supreme yang qi. When the extreme coldness and heat from their bodies came together, there were vague signs of neutralization. It weakened the frigidness and scorching heat from both of them by a little. The heavenly enchantress's deeply frozen body also showed signs of melting. Not long afterward, all the ice on her body melted and she was returned to her previous state. Although the situation for the two of them had taken a somewhat good turn, that was only the situation outside their bodies. Inside, the danger was still present. The supreme yin qi and supreme yang qi remained. Jian Chen embraced the heavenly enchantress's smaller, soft bod but He did not have the time to enjoy the wondrous feeling. He said softly, "Heavenly Enchantress, apologies." With that, Jianchen closed his eyes and directly began to rip away her clothes.
Arg.
"What are you doing?" "You bastard! Let me go!" the Heavenly Enchantress cried out as she struggled violently. She began to resist with all she had. At this very moment, the energies within them had already reached their necks. Time was extremely tight. Jianchen did not act like the Heavenly Enchantress, trying to use his life to protect his purity. He could no longer care too much, he just wanted to make it through the disaster. Ignoring the Heavenly Enchantress's violent struggles, Jianchen immediately took action because there was not much time left. If he continued to hesitate, both their lives would be threatened. Very quickly, all of the Heavenly Enchantress's clothes were stripped off. It revealed the pure white skin under her dress. It was as white as sheepskin, as fine as a baby's bottom, and as smooth as jade. "You bastard! Release me. If you really do it, I will never forgive you. Let me go immediately," the Heavenly Enchantress resisted desperately. If it was under normal situations, she would not need to worry about Jianchen at all. However, she currently had no power over her body with the supreme Yin Qi acting up inside. She was unable to use her abilities to fend off Jianchen at all. "Heavenly Enchantress, if we don't purge the problem from our bodies, we both will die. I, Jianchen, cannot afford to die right now. Apologies, you bastard." A series of ragged breaths appeared in the desolate wasteland, making the dead world slightly livelier. The sound continued for an hour, before slowly quieting down. Afterward, there were no more sounds. The wasteland recovered its deathly silence. Jianchen and the Heavenly Enchantress lay on the wasteland naked. They both had their eyes closed, currently unconscious. No one knew whether they had fallen asleep or fallen unconscious. The Heavenly Enchantress's veil was already removed, revealing her appearance. She was extremely beautiful, to the point where it could no longer be described as alluring or kingdom-toppling. Her beauty was stifling. Her beauty seemed to surpass the limit of the world, reaching a whole different realm. It was not something that was supposed to exist in this world. The soil near the Heavenly Enchantress's waist was dyed with drops of blood. It painted some new colors on the gray, gloomy land. On Jianchen's back, there were many scratches that crisscrossed with each other. They did not break through his skin, but there were clearly visible white marks. The two of them lay on the cold ground just like this. Whether they were in deep sleep or unconsciousness, they did not wake up even after a long time. Time passed silently. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In those 3 days, the two remained unconscious, stuck in the same posture, without moving at all. From afar, the two pillars of black and white light remained, stretching into the sky. They gave of slivers of supreme Yin and supreme Yang Qi that slowly fused into the two. However, the Qi was no longer able to cause any harm to the unconscious duo. As soon as the Qi entered their bodies, it would be balanced out, turning into a gentle energy before being absorbed by them. A portion fused with their bodies, while the remaining part merged with their heads. It caused some slight changes to their souls, strengthening it at the same time. At this very moment, the two pillars of light in the distance slowly disappeared. With their disappearance, the supreme Yin Qi and supreme Yang Qi in the surroundings also vanished instantly. A soft breeze blew across. Jianchen, who had been unconscious for 3 whole days, finally began to wake up gradually. He slowly opened his eyes. Jianchen clearly had no idea about his current situation as soon as he woke up. He subconsciously wriggled slightly, but with the movement, he immediately felt that something was wrong. This was because it was not the cold, hard soil that he subconsciously assumed to be beneath him, but something soft and warm. At the same time, a numbing moan was heard by Jianchen. The voice carried some pain. Jianchen's slight wriggling had also awakened the Heavenly Enchantress. Their eyes focused from the blurriness after sleep at the same time. The first thing they saw was each other, and they were only a few inches apart. They were both surprised, clearly still not completely awake. Chapter 845. A great increase in strength shortly afterward. All the images from a few days ago flashed through their heads like a film. It woke them up immediately, and the heavenly enchantress's expression immediately became torn between rage and shame. At this moment, she pushed Jianchen far, far away, with an energy of unknown origins. She immediately climbed up. When she saw that she was completely naked under the sky, without anything covering her jade-like body and the droplets of blood on the ground, tears immediately began to well up in her beautiful eyes. They were filled with rage and grievance. Forcefully resisting her anger, the heavenly enchantress pulled out a new purple dress from her space ring and quickly draped it over herself. She stared viciously at Jianchen with flames of rage, while more and more tears welled up. Her eyes were filled with misery. Jianchen hurriedly pulled out a set of white, tight robes and wore them. Seeing the heavenly enchantress's indescribable beauty, he became lost. He had never seen such a beautiful woman before. It could be said that she was the most beautiful out of all the women he had seen. Her beauty already superseded the fairies in heaven like the goddess beyond the 9 heavens. She was that flawless and perfect. However, he also understood that this was not the time to appreciate the heavenly enchantress's beauty. He explained hurriedly, "Heavenly enchantress, I hope you can understand. Under those circumstances, I had no choice either. Otherwise, both of us would have died. Only like this can we survive." "Shut up." The heavenly enchantress cut off Jianchen. She stared at Jianchen with infuriation and roared, "You bastard, you beast, taking advantage of people. You actually used such despicable means to take my body. I will never forgive you. After I kill you, I'll kill myself." The heavenly enchantress was a woman who seemed gentle on the outside, but she was actually tough on the inside. She seemed to be a rather gentle and quiet person, but her personality was extremely staunch. She was unable to endure being defiled like this. The zither of the demonic cry appeared in her hands. She placed it midair and quickly began to play it with both hands. Every time she struck a note gently, it would shoot out a powerful sound wave at Jianchen. Jianchen would not just stand there and get hit for nothing. The heavenly enchantress's strength was already greater than his. Even though his chaotic body had a powerful defense, he did not dare to just receive the sound wave attack. He immediately turned into a blur, quickly moving away, dodging the sound wave from the heavenly enchantress. "Heavenly enchantress, calm down. Why must you be so stubborn? You know that I had no other choice under those circumstances too." Jianchen explained as he dodged, attempting to convince the heavenly enchantress. The heavenly enchantress's eyes had returned to the coldness from before, and she quickly played the zither with her 2 hands. Each note produced was filled with killing intent and shot toward Jianchen. The sound waves grew denser and denser, blotting out the surroundings. Gradually, it formed a cage that locked down Jianchen and cut off any route of escape. The light in Jianchen's eyes flickered. Chaotic force surged about in his body, pushing the chaotic body to the limit. Afterward, he directly hurled out a punch, opening up an exit and escaping with the illusionary flash. However, faced with the densely packed soundwave attacks, he was unable to come out unscathed and was hit by several sound waves. However, the sound waves strangely transformed into an energy when they collided with Jianchen, silently entering his body. Afterward, it was assimilated by the chaotic force and turned into his own power. Feeling the difference in his body, Jianchen was immediately astounded. The light in his eyes flickered a few more times, and he soon stopped running. He let the dense sound waves in the surroundings strike his body as he stood where he was. The sound waves struck Jianchen like moths flying to a flame. However, with no exceptions whatsoever, the sound waves were unable to harm him. All of it was assimilated by the chaotic force in him as soon as they came into contact with his body, converting into Jianchen's own power. However, this energy was just too little to Jianchen and made almost no difference at all. Just what's happening? Jianchen was filled with skepticism. He had no idea what had happened to his body that allowed him to absorb the soundwave attacks from the heavenly enchantress. How is this possible? Seeing that her attacks were unable to harm Jianchen, she also revealed a shocked expression. Afterward, the melody she played changed and she cried out, "Soul devouring of the heavenly demon." The soul devouring of the heavenly demon was one of the relatively more powerful melodies that the heavenly enchantress knew. It used the zither to confuse people, causing their souls to vanish and disperse into the surroundings unknowingly. It was a terrifying melody that killed without any signs, and it was impossible to guard against. The gentle zither notes resounded through the surroundings. It seemed to be filled with a certain charm, calming down everything in the world at that very moment. Even the gentle breeze in the area stopped. Jianchen stood 30 meters away, quietly listening to the melody. He revealed an expression of anxiety. He could naturally feel that the zither notes concealed a killing intent, but when he heard it, he did not feel anything. It was as if they could not affect him at all and posed no harm. Very soon, the melody progressed to its halfway point. Seeing how Jianchen did not experience anything, not even a change in expression, the heavenly enchantress became shocked and her face became filled with disbelief. The melody stopped. The heavenly enchantress stopped playing the zither and stared blankly at Jianchen.
She struggled to accept this.
No, 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 this is impossible, impossible. How is it like this?
How?
Why is my zither unable to affect you? The heavenly enchantress became rather despaired. Not only did Jianchen take her chastity, he was now immune to her zither. This prevented her from ever taking revenge. She could not accept this. The heavenly enchantress did not believe it. She began playing again, but no matter what she tried, it was unable to harm Jianchen at all. He really did seem to be completely immune to her zither. Impossible. How is it like this?
How? Why? Why?
Why is it like this? The heavenly enchantress shook her head. More and more tears welled up in her eyes, before finally rolling down her beautiful face as two streaks of crystal-like tears. She was in misery. Just why is it like this? Jianchen also felt extremely strange over the fact that he was now immune to the heavenly enchantress's sound attacks. He had no idea just what had happened. Master, 3 days ago, when the two of you embraced each other and balanced your yin and yang, you also absorbed the energy that came out of the balancing afterward. As a result, a few changes occurred to your bodies. Now, if the two of you fight, it would be equivalent to Supreme Yang Qi encountering Supreme Yin Qi. It would be nullified instantly, prevent the two of you from harming each other. Ziying explained for Jianchen. This was the first time that Jianchen had ever heard of something like this. He found it to be extremely novel, but it just happened to answer his doubts. Afterward, he looked toward the sorrowful heavenly enchantress, and his expression became a great mix of emotions. What happened between him and the heavenly enchantress was definitely not an accident. However, at that time, he had no choice. He needed to survive. Even if he could travel back in time, he would have still done the same thing. Sigh. Jianchen sighed gently in his head. He sat down where he stood. He knew that the heavenly enchantress needed to calm down right now, so he did not disturb her. He had no real way to deal with this. He could only let matters take its course and develop as it would. He was not stupid enough to mention matters, such as taking responsibility. The heavenly enchantress was a powerful saint ruler, not an untouched girl from an ordinary family. It could not be compared to secular matters. Quieting down, Jianchen immediately checked the conditions of his own body. He discovered that his soul had strengthened by several folds. It was now extremely powerful. If his previous soul was a finger-sized flame, his soul right now would be a small but extraordinarily bright light bulb, radiating with dazzling light. This was a qualitative increase, far greater than any quantitative increase. With the strengthening of his soul, Jianchen's presence had also greatly increased. Unfortunately, his presence was suppressed here, preventing him from expanding it. Otherwise, he would really be keen to see just how much his presence had increased. Afterward, Jianchen began to inspect his dantian. He immediately felt extremely serendipitous after a single glance, as he saw that the chaotic Niden had already increased to the size of a fist from the chicken egg size of before. He had almost reached the peak of the first layer of the chaotic body. The growth of the chaotic Niden excited Jian Chun for some reason. At the same time, he was secretly shocked by the strength of the Supreme Yin Qi and Supreme Yang Qi. He never thought that he would gain so many benefits in a few short days through the balancing and absorption of energies. Ignoring the changes in the soul, just growth of the chaotic Niden was equivalent to 3 years of work. It also saved him large quantities of monster cores, which moved Jian Chun very much. I've already reached the peak of the first layer with my chaotic body. I only need to find some time to go into seclusion, and I'll be able to reach the second layer. Jian Chun itched to try it. He was tempted to go into seclusion immediately. Jian Chun opened his eyes and looked toward the Heavenly Enchantress. Heavenly Enchantress, we both may have paid something this time, but the benefits we have gained is extraordinary at the same time. After balancing the yin and yang and absorbing the energies, we both should have reaped great benefits. If you carefully examine the condition of your body, your strength should have increased greatly. Currently, the Heavenly Enchantress had already begun to calm down gradually. Hearing what Jian Chun had said, her expression remained the same. She closed her eyes skeptically, silently sensing any changes in her body. A second later, the Heavenly Enchantress's eyes abruptly snapped open. They were filled with an unconcealable shock, but very soon, it turned into pain. She gently bit her bottom lip and she seemed down. Her strength had indeed increased, just as Jian Chun had said. However, compared to the price she had paid, she would have rather not gained this increase. Chapter 846. The strongest human. Jian Chun paid attention to the changes in the Heavenly Enchantress's expressions rather anxiously. Seeing that she did not overreact, he immediately relaxed slightly, and after hesitating for a moment, he said, "Heavenly Enchantress, let's go onward and have a look. Let's see if we can find our way back." The Heavenly Enchantress sat dejectedly on the ground, as if she could not hear Jian Chun at all. She did not react to him at all. Jian Chun sighed gently and lowered his head to think. He stood up from the ground and gazed at the location where the yin-yang qi came from. He said, "Don't you want to find out exactly what forced us? If you want to know, come with me." With that, Jian Chun paid no more attention to her, turning around and walking off into the distance. The Heavenly Enchantress slowly raised her head. She stared at Jian Chun's back, which constantly grew smaller with mixed emotions. Gently biting her lip, she hesitated slightly before she slowly followed Jian Chun in the end. The two of them maintained a distance of 30 meters between them as they traveled, and they eventually arrived at a deep ditch of 1,000 meters. This was where the 2 huge pillars of light were 3 days ago. Standing at the edge of the ditch, Jian Chun did not hurry down. He focused his eyes on the very center of it. He could vaguely feel some extremely obscure ripples of energy, and the ripples were so powerful that it even made him shocked. The Heavenly Enchantress also walked up from behind. Despite the wound in her heart, she had already calmed down, and her face was once again hidden by a veil. She stood 3 meters away from Jian Chun at the edge of the ditch. At the same time, she looked down into the very depths with her eyes that were still filled with misery. She could obviously feel the extremely obscure but powerful ripples of energy too. "Master, it's here. This is where the yin-yang qi radiated from." Ziying's voice sounded in Jian Chun's mind. "We can't expand our presence at all here. Master, you should go down and have a look." Qing Sua's impatient voice also appeared in Jian Chun's head. Jian Chun became stern. Strands of chaotic force surged from his chaotic Niden, filling every corner of his body. He pushed the defenses of his body to the limit. After that, he turned around to the Heavenly Enchantress. "I want to go down and see. You can follow behind me." She remained silent. Jian Chun no longer hesitated and directly leaped into the ditch. He vigilantly slid down the slope as he slowly headed toward the bottom. The Heavenly Enchantress followed closely after he leaped down. She tailed Jian Chun, slowly sliding down toward the bottom too. She was unfamiliar with everything here. She was unable to find a way out. Meanwhile, Jian Chen seemed to know quite a few secrets. Only by following Jian Chen would she get the chance to leave this place. The two of them arrived at the bottom very quickly. The bottom was flat and had a diameter of 100 meters. Two balls of powerful light floated quietly at the center. The balls were 2 meters off the ground, and one was white and one was black. This is a Yinyang Saint Rock. I never thought that the Yinyang Qi here would be so powerful that it has formed a Yinyang Saint Rock. The two sword spirits materialized above Jian Chen, both staring at the two balls of light in shock. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress also looked at the Yinyang Saint Rock and observed it curiously. Jian Chen stared at the balls of light with interest for a while, before he slowly walked over. However, as soon as Jian Chen reached 50 meters from the balls of light, a white figure appeared silently to block Jian Chen's path. The sudden white figure frightened Jian Chen greatly. He did not hesitate at all, casting the illusionary flash. He retreated 20 meters with lightning speed and only left behind a blur. He stared vigilantly at the figure that had just appeared. Only now did Jian Chen see the figure's appearance clearly. He was a middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 40s, but the man's determined face still contained the residual handsomeness of his youth. He did not seem like the average man. His indifferent eyes were filled with condescension, as if he was the ruler of the world, as if he was God. However, his body seemed rather ethereal. He did not seem to be corporeal. With the appearance of the man, an indescribable pressure immediately began to permeate the surroundings. At this very moment, the entire world seemed to freeze. Even time stopped. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress immediately felt immobilized. It did not just stop there. They lost sense of their bodies. It felt like their souls and bodies had just been separated and divided into two. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress both became astounded. Just the pressure from the man was enough to make the two of them feel like their souls had separated from their bodies. They felt great shock and horror at the man's strength. Saint Emperor. This thought occurred to both of them at the same time because ninth heavenly layer Saint Kings were definitely unable to cause such stunning feelings. Only legendary Saint Emperors could. The man floated 3 meters in the air. He stared fixedly at the sword spirits above Jian Chen's head, while some surprise appeared in his eyes. The sword spirits also looked toward the man simultaneously. They became extremely serious. They stared off with the man for a while before Xing spoke out. Who are you? You were the one who set down the 8 trigrams disorientating formation? A sliver of surprise flashed across the man's eyes once again. He said, I never thought that you two spirits would actually know about the 8 trigrams disorientating formation too. Impressive. Very impressive. Looks like the reason why these two puny people can come here is all because of you two. As he spoke, the pressure in the surroundings also disappeared suddenly. Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress regained control over their bodies. They stared at the middle-aged in shock, stunned by his strength. Staring at the man's face, Jian Chen felt a feeling that he knew him, as if he had met him somewhere. Just who are you? Why do you know the 8 trigrams disorientating formation? This time, the one asking questions was Qing Suo. She stared fixedly at the man with a stern expression. As soon as Qing Suo finished speaking, Jian Chen seemed to think of something. His expression immediately changed greatly, and he cried out as he stared at the man in shock. You're the #1 experts of mankind, Mo Tianyun's. Jian Chen was not unfamiliar with Mo Tianyun's appearance. He had seen his sculptures more than just once in Mercenary City, and this man's appearance just happened to be exactly the same as Mo Tianyun's sculptures. With that, the heavenly enchantress also became shocked. She stared fixedly at the man's appearance. With this glance, a rumble immediately shook through her head. The man before her really did have the exact same appearance as the huge sculpture in Mercenary City. Mo Tianyun, are you really Senior Mo Tianyun? The heavenly enchantress cried out uncontrollably. It was rumored long ago that Mo Tianyun was already dead, yet right now, the legendary person had appeared before her like a miracle. She struggled to believe it. The man looked at Jian Chen and the heavenly enchantress. A sliver of melancholy appeared on his face, and he sighed emotionally. You must be from the Tian Yuan continent. So much time has passed, yet I'm still able to see people from the continent. I originally thought that no one from the continent would ever be able to come here. Senior Mo Tianyan, is it really you? Jian Chen's voice carried some unexplainable serendipity. He was previously skeptical, but he had now confirmed the man's identity. He was the greatest expert of the humans, Mo Tianyan. Mo Tianyan was the protector god of the Tian Yuan continent. When the continent was invaded by the 100 races in the ancient times, it was Mo Tianyan who emerged at the most crucial moment after all the humans were defeated by the experts of the 100 races. He repelled the 100 races by himself and saved all the people on the Tian Yuan continent. This was the reason why the continent had its current peace. Although Jian Chen had never seen Mo Tianyan, he was still born on the continent. As a result, he admired and respected this savior of the continent, Mo Tianyan, very much. Right now, he had seen a legend. It would be difficult for him to not be excited. How is the situation between the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent right now? Mo Tianyan asked the two of them. Afterward, Jian Chen narrated the circumstances of the continent. He hid nothing about the winged tiger god reappearing or that the Beast God continent had invaded. He believed that since Mo Tianyan had set down the rule where people of Mercenary City could not be hostile to the winged tiger god, he definitely would not do anything harmful to the winged tiger god. When the heavenly enchantress heard about the winged tiger god, a sliver of shock flashed across her eyes. She glanced coldly at Jian Chen. With her intelligent mind, she had immediately guessed that the white tiger which she rode on the Dragon's Island was the winged tiger god. Hearing the winged tiger god, Mo Tianyan's expression became rather mixed. He said, "Let me see it." Jian Chen knew that Mo Tianyan was referring to the winged tiger. He did not hesitate at all, immediately releasing the cat-sized Xiaobai from the saint artifact. However, Xiaobai was sound asleep right now, absorbing the medicinal effects of the heavenly resources. It did not wake up. Senior, the Grand Elder of Mercenary City once deduced that if the winged tiger god fell in the hands of the Beast God continent, it would be extremely possible that the ruler would forcefully take its body before entering the Beast God Hall to take the legacy. Jian Chen said. Mo Tianyan sighed gently. It will definitely experience a rough journey as it grows. Right now, I'm just a sliver of presence left here to protect this place, to prevent anything from happening here, so I can't leave. Also, I can't last too much longer either. As the two of you have awakened me this time, my sliver of presence will disappear soon afterward. It can only rely on itself in the future. I am unable to help it directly. With that, Jian Chen sighed secretly. He became dejected. Mo Tianyan looked towards the sword spirits. If my eyes don't deceive me, you two must be the sect treasures of the sword sect of Amethyst Heavens, the chief sect of the 9 great sects, the sword spirits of the Azulate swords. Mo Tianyan's words caused the sword spirits to jolt. They stared at Mo Tianyan in shock and cried out at the same time, "Just who are you?" You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.